pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mrs. Meltzer.
Thank you. Mrs. West?
Here.
Mr. Keys?
Here.
Mr. Pearl?
Here.
Mr. Cannon?
Here.
Mr. Aragona?
Here.
Mr. Gilliam?
Here.
Mrs. Meltzer here.
Do we have any additions and/or deletions to tonight's agenda?
We have two deletions. Item 10, proposed conditional rezoning, and item 17, application for right-of-way permit.
Wait, item 10?
17, 10, and 17.
That's the home ones, right, for number 10?
Pardon me? No, that's the RML, yeah, multiple family residential and R1 family residential for
I have
expansion.
that as number 9.
Yeah.
That's the
I have it, I
passport
think.
recognition report is number 9.
What?
She's redone it.
I'm looking at the one on the
We had to
website.
make changes to, there was a request to remove some of the items around, so.
I'm hitting refresh, so, all right. I just refreshed it,
10 is
and
empty.
10 is,
Proposed conditional rezoning is 10.
Okay, so that's gone.
Is yours beyond?
Yeah,
And
mine's right.
Application of right.
application,
Under Metro Act.
okay, those two are removed. And are you moving some items?
So all right, item 1 is the DIA community program presentation, and 2, request to waive collection box fees. Item 3 was a recommendation for the RFP for splash pad. That was
Okay.
moved up,
Okay, splash pad, okay,
is 3.
thank you. So that's why my number is wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Supervisor, I believe there was an additional item sent over today.
Okay,
We had,
I didn't get an add-on. By whom?
okay, well, Mr. Gillum, I know you sent the email.
yeah, so I sent an email out earlier today, and it's a resolution to request that the petitions for the ballot proposal on amending ordinances for marijuana be distributed to board members that request them. And so that resolution was placed, or was written, drafted by the township attorney, and we're requesting that it be placed on the agenda
And when was that sent over?
today.
I was told that there was going to be one, but I never received it.
I received one at about quarter to
4:07?
4.
Yep.
Quarter to 4?
4:07
Okay. Well,
PM, yeah.
we're busy processing ballots, so I didn't get that. So, yeah, that's fine. Do we have it in written format, if I
Yeah.
can see?
Do you want to,
Do we have it written?
Why can't I get this?
If you were looking at your computer after quarter to 4.
Which item is it?
It's not, they didn't add it to the agenda, so it'd be in your email.
Oh, it's not a printed one.
So that would be item 22,
Resolution.
resolution.
Thank you.
So moved.
Support.
so we're adding this as number 22?
Yep.
And that's an emergency item, I would take it.
It's not an emergency. I mean, it's a resolution by.
Been talked about several times.
Well, it's not been talked about that it's going to be on this agenda, but it can be on here for discussion. I'm fine with it.
Roll call?
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Well, welcome to your Township Board meeting this evening. If there's anything on the agenda you wish to speak to, please come to the microphone when it's appropriate and give us your name and address for the record. If there's something you'd like to talk about that's not part of the agenda, we have public comment cards to your left in the front of the room. Please fill one of those out, and we'll hear what you have to say at the end of the meeting. We do have one public service announcement this evening. In front of me, you see the results of a great deal of work by many members of the community, 2 logos that the community will now be voting on to become part of this community. So you can go on Clinton Township's webpage. On the upper right-hand corner, click on the little icon up there and cast your vote. We hope that everyone participates. So these are the 2 that have been whittled down from the many that we started with. Thank you. And with that, we'll take item number 1, a DIA community program presentation.
Dear Township Board members, the Detroit Institute of Art's popular program Inside Out brings high-quality reproductions from the DIA's collection to outdoor venues throughout Metro Detroit. Inside Out is a popular component of the DIA's community engagement efforts. Over the past 10 years, the museum has partnered with more than 100 communities and engaged tens of thousands of residents with art in places where they live, work, and play. DIA representatives are here to give us a presentation about the program as well as answer any questions that anyone may have in regards to the Inside Out program. Thank you, Joe Aragona, Clinton Township trustee, Mike Keys, Clinton Township trustee, and Kim Meltzer, Clinton Township clerk.
Great, thank you. There we are. Okay.
You need to use that microphone, otherwise only the people in this room can hear you.
All right. Is there a way to make this full screen? It's
Looks like you're in PDF, so I don't think so.
behaving. Actually, that's not this monitor. That's not what I'm seeing. See, I'm over there. How does that right-hand screen get up there? Anybody know? I'm sorry, the tech issue here. Anybody have any clue? It's right there, so close.
If you like helping the DIA, by all means, Bob.
Here we go.
It's simple enough. It was working earlier. But now I'm kind of sharing.
There she is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, yay.
Hey.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Teamwork.
Stephanie.
Teamwork. All right.
She's like the Fonz.
She's like the what?
Okay, thanks for giving me some time. I know you're very busy, so I appreciate you allowing me to speak. My name's Ian Rapnicki. I'm the Community Engagement Manager for Macomb County at the DIA. And I want to talk to you about the ways in which that the DIA serves the community. But before just launching straight in, I'd like to highlight some of the things that make the museum so special, maybe set a calm tone for this otherwise could be stressful and busy day. So looking at some art is one way to utilize the collection. Up on the screen, I brought just a small selection. Top left corner is a work by Peter Bruegel the Elder, which is on display as part of an exhibition right now. This is just one of two paintings that exist by this artist in the country, so it's a really rare piece for the museum to own. The top center is a small image of a very large work. It's Detroit Industry Murals by Diego Rivera. So it's right in the heart of the museum, and it highlights working class, which it's a star attraction. One of the gems and the jewels in the collection show people that look really familiar to people in this region. I grew up in an automotive family, factory worker, mom and dad and grandpa and everybody I knew. So it's really empowering to see people come in and recognize themselves or their family on the walls of an art museum. Well, maybe I should just speak really briefly. Van Gogh, you might recognize him in the top corner. We've got a show coming up this summer that includes 60-plus Van Goghs all in the building at the same time. That's going to be a great one. The bottom left corner, come see Kermit while you can. The DIA's puppet collection is really incredible, and one of the stars of that collection is this 1969 prototype that Jim Henson made for the character of Kermit the Frog. And he's on view right now. He's just really delicate, and he doesn't come out often, but he'll be out through the end of March. So it's like seeing a celebrity if you can get a chance to come down and visit him. And then the last two show some of the range of our collection in terms of age and regions. The middle one on the bottom is an image of a creature called Mashushu, and that's a section of the Ishtar Gate from the ancient city of Babylon. It's over 2,500 years old. And next to that is a contemporary work by artist Kehinde Wiley. So we have things spanning the globe and spanning from antiquity to present, and it's really an incredible collection that's ranked in the top 5 or 6 art museums in the country, and it's right down the street. But since 2012, we've had 4 areas of focus as service agreements to the communities, because in 2012, voters approved a millage, and as a result, established governing bodies to determine services that would be offered or provided as a result of that. And these are the 4 main areas: free general admission, free field trips with transportation, senior programming with transportation, and community partnerships. So I'll walk through those one at a time. First of all is the free general admission. Since 2012, we've welcomed more than 2 million Tri-County residents to the museum, and you get free general admission as a resident of Macomb County. You get free general admission every day of the year that we're open to the public, unlimited. You can come back as much as you'd like. Our student programs are also something that we're really proud of. DIA is a leader in education. We provide free field trips, free transportation, free access to tens of thousands of students in the Tri-County area. We really believe that these field trips encourage discovery and support students to step outside of what's familiar to them and explore things that you can't find in books, can't find on TV or on the internet. You can find it in person around these authentic artworks in the museum. And I got to be a part of that for a long time. Prior to my position now, I was in education for 5 years. So I actually got to lead students around the museum and have those interesting conversations. And I just wanted to give a shout out because one of the schools that comes and sent students last year even was Lutz School from Clinton Township. And I always loved working with Lutz School. It was always a fun day when those students were in the building. Teaching social skills. The Lutz School brings older students that have a variety of needs and abilities and use the museum as an opportunity to socialize and have conversations around art that encourage them to share their own kind of opinions. And it was really always a fun time. And I miss seeing them now that I don't get to tour students anymore. But I digress. In addition to working with students, we also work with educators. We hold special events like sneak peeks for teachers to come in and see upcoming exhibitions or gallery spaces that are changing. We also do professional development, which can count towards teachers' recertifications. We offer workshops in something called Visual Thinking Strategies, VTS. And it's an inquiry-based kind of conversation around art that encourages kids to share their personal experiences, their prior knowledge, and have dialogue back and forth, sharing a variety of opinions. And it's shown to increase critical thinking and listening skills. So using art as a tool that can help students in other areas outside of an art class or outside of an art museum, having increased critical thinking skills is, of course, very important. We also have senior programming. This is the third core service area. Every Thursday at the museum, we offer different programming. Sometimes we offer tours of the collection. Sometimes it's art making in the art studio, films in the Detroit Film Theater, artist demonstrations, special lectures, an assortment of activities that happen on Thursdays. And it's always wrapped up with a little reception with coffee and cookies that are complimentary. And that's something that's free for residents. And if you have a group of 25 or more, we actually provide the bus transportation to and from the museum, which is really a main source of our attendance is groups from libraries or senior centers or facilities that bring down big groups. But it's also open to the general public as a drop-in. Anyone 55 and over can join in on that, claim their free cookies and coffee, and take part in whatever activities happening that day. You know, it's not a bad way to spend a Thursday afternoon is watching a nice film in the film theater or making an art project. And just since I mentioned that free transportation, I should go back and amend the student slide and say that we do provide free transportation for schools too, because that's a huge game changer for school districts, because transportation is very expensive. And as a result of that free transportation, we've seen a huge increase in attendance from before we were offering that or providing that. We went from something like 30,000 students to last year just about 80,000 Metro Detroit Tri-County students visited the museum on free field trips. We also do community partnerships. Here you're seeing the results of a few PIPA projects. PIPA stands for Partnerships in Public Art. And it's the museum partnering with communities, talking to them about what type of art they'd like to see in their community. Here you see murals, one in Warren and one in Romeo. But there's other opportunities. We survey the community to find out if they're interested in murals, if they're interested in a sculpture possibly in a public space. Talk to community members, find out what are the symbols of that community that resonate for them, and work with the community to share the skills, the resources it takes to actually put that into a public space, and then it'll stay there for years to come. So that's been a really popular, successful program that will continue. but we also do something called Inside Out. And some in this room might recall, it's been a while, 2012 was the last time that Inside Out was in Clinton Township. Hopefully, I'll get an application maybe across my desk in coming seasons. But this season, we're already in the works to be in 25 Metro Detroit communities. Several of them are within stone's throw of here. So there's going to be artworks in public parks and public spaces around the Tri-County area. Inside Out is high-quality framed reproductions of the museum's masterworks, so you encounter them in unexpected spaces. And it's just an opportunity for people who might not necessarily be able to make the trip down to the museum to still have this experience with one of these works of art. And in the different contexts that you find these, it creates a different experience than you would have in the museum. I mean, these things are out in the elements. There's no security guard there to tell you to back up or step away. And so people feel a little more free to engage with them in ways that they wouldn't inside the building. But hopefully it also encourages people to come and find that authentic work of art in the museum after kind of seeing it out in the wild like that. So that's been a hugely popular program. Again, I'd love to see some interest in Clinton Township. We'd love to bring it back. It's been probably too long. You were one of the early communities to host that in 2012, so you're overdue.
South Branch Library.
South Branch Library. Well, put an app in. And I can communicate to you as that. It'll probably be a few months before we kind of formulate that document of the application, but I can certainly distribute it to you. And if there's any interest, get you some Inside Out image back. But that's the presentation, kind of sum it up into a simple little ball. But I'm open to taking any questions that might have arisen.
Mr. Aragona?
Yeah, Ian, thank you very much for
Yeah.
being here. 2 questions. I do remember Mike and I were down, Mr. Keys and I were down at the DIA a little over a year ago now, and I believe there's also a chess club that goes on down there.
Yeah, every
You want to expound
Friday.
upon that a little bit?
Yeah, every Friday evening after school, kids come in, we set up the tables, and it's a special program with local school that they come and they practice and compete right in the museum and right in the public space. So it's really exciting to see as the kind of normal work days winding down, the museum starts to come to life on Friday nights, starting with the chess. You see the kids walk in, drop their backpacks, and start playing chess, which is really, I think, a great way to utilize a Friday evening. And certainly kids could be getting up to other stuff instead of exercising their brain like that. But the museum's open till 10 o'clock on Friday nights, too, to the general public. So we offer Friday night programming, which is free as part of your free general admission. Usually it's in Rivera Court. They'll set up sound stage, and sometimes it's musical performances or dance performances. Just a couple weeks ago, we had a dance kind of lesson where there were instructors who came in and actually taught people to dance in Rivera Court, and it takes on a totally different energy than you might expect to find in an art museum. So it gets really exciting on the weekends.
And how many kids do you think you have come through there on an average Friday?
I think they set up about 1, 2, 3, just from memory, I think it's probably about 12 8-foot tables. So there's probably 8 chairs at each of those tables. It gets pretty crowded at the chess, in the chess zone there. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And then my other question, I'd actually like to make a motion on this, but the Inside Out program, I think that's a great thing that we can bring here to Clinton Township. So obviously there's an application that we need to fill out, but what else is the DIA looking for in a community partner in order to bring some of the art to our area that we can put in some of these places throughout the township?
Well, spaces to host the images are important. So, that could be really diverse. So we often find them in parks, but we locate them in front of library buildings or city buildings. It's really, if you have a space that's accommodating for it. Another criteria is we usually favor communities that haven't hosted Inside Out before or in a while. And in your case, it's been long enough that I think it would be fair that you'd be, strongly considered. This is all, of course, pending interest. We can only service so many communities in any given year, but you'd be a strong contender since it's been a
Okay.
while.
So you're going to be taking applications for the 2021 year?
Yes, yes.
And do you know when the application is actually going to be published?
I don't. We got the ball rolling probably late summer or fall.
Okay.
The results of my work since fall are finally coming into fruition as we're finalizing all the orders for production of this summer's 2020's images. And you can find those. We'll be in Harrison Township because we'll be in the Metro Park there, Lake St. Clair Metro Park. We'll host some images. We'll be in Utica, Sterling Heights, St. Clair Shores. We're even doing something special in Warren, but that'll be at the Detroit Arsenal to service their staff. They've got 7,000 contracted employees that go in and out of there, and we had to show them some love too. We're also at Macomb Community College this year. So there's a lot of opportunity. And also down the street, we are just putting the finishing touches in Mount Clemens, a little community partnership that's a little different than Inside Out. These aren't framed reproductions. These are images that we're placing in storefront windows. Many of those stores are vacant storefronts downtown. So there's about 38 images all concentrated within a walking distance downtown for residents to just walk around and explore. We're hoping to set up some kind of public guided tours, walking tours or biking tours or something of that nature. And we'll have maps available of all these locations on our website, so they'll be downloadable or viewable on your phone or on your computer, and you can go explore the parks or wherever you might be interested in finding these works.
Very cool. That's all the questions I got, and I don't want to stifle any other conversation, but I would like to make a motion to receive and file, but also to direct our beautification commission to, when the application is published, to find one of the applications, make sure it gets filled out, and then work with the DIA in order to hopefully get the Inside Out program to Clinton Township in 2021.
Support.
Thank you. Mrs. Meltzer, you have the floor.
Thank you. I wanted just clarification. You said 38 images. Is that what we would be applying for in Clinton Township as well?
No, well, it varies from community to community, depending on the number of communities we're servicing, and just the area and kind of geography of the region. For Inside Out, it's typically something like 6 to 10 images that a community hosts. This art, we call it Mount Clemens Art City, is a unique partnership that is outside of the scope of Inside Out. It's a unique partnership with the Mount Clemens, or the Macomb Cultural and Economic Partnership, to bring the images downtown. So that's a really unique example of different kind of community partnerships that we form as a result of different conversations we have, in addition to the kind of standard issued programming that we have.
Can I fill up, also, then what type of images would we, if we were awarded this opportunity, which is a great opportunity to do again, and I'm not sure who put it in place previous to, in 2012, but are we involved with choosing what type of images we want?
I certainly have conversations with community partners and sensitivities they might have. There are limitations. We have 65,000 objects in the art collection at the museum. Our Inside Out inventory is limited by things like licensing, having the rights to an image. A lot of living artists maintain those rights. So there's limitations there, high resolution photography of the pieces. So we're working from a catalog of about 125 images from the collection that we reproduce in that way.
Okay.
So it's a narrower focus. Some of them are limited types of installation. We can install a larger work on a wall. We do masonry installation. They come in after it and they'll clean that up. They'll they'll go in the mortar joints and they're able to patch the mortar like it wasn't there. But we can install much larger pieces on walls. If we're going to freestand them on a post, it limits it a little more because we can only do slightly smaller pieces because we don't want these things catching huge gusts of wind when you're talking about a 4 by 8 foot thing. We don't want to have anything falling over. So there are limitations, but there's an amazing collection and assortment, variety to choose from.
That sounds wonderful. Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Keys?
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. Thank you for being here. I have a couple questions for you. So I love the sheet that you gave us that kind of explains how many teachers and students have visited the DIA, and I think you picked a great spokesperson in Debbie Travis here in Clinton Township. So I love the quote. I'd love to see this, though, if you're able, on a more local scale. I'd like to see what school
Yeah.
districts are taking advantage of it, because what I've found in talking with some teachers is that the schools with additional resources are usually the ones to reach out to you first. Those other schools, it takes a little while to build that relationship with the DIA, and I'd like to try and help with that. So
That would be great. And, just for a little reference, I did print out, and some of these might not have been vetted completely, but a list of different senior facilities, but also a list of different schools that visited last year. With your permission, I can just pass this off
Yeah,
to you.
that
You
would
can
be
kind of
great.
see a general list of things that came up in the
Yeah.
kind of records for last year.
thank you. Yeah, and I can share this with the board members here,
Yeah.
too. No, that's perfect.
Certainly.
Because if we can find a school that maybe is not utilizing it as much, we can talk with those principals and teachers, let them know that
Yeah.
you're a resource.
That would be great, and I could serve as liaison, connect you with our education department, my former home. But our education director is really accommodating and likes to work with districts to attract new audiences. We love our repeat visitors, but we were always looking to get new visitors. And awareness is a big issue. People don't a lot of teachers don't realize that it's a free bus that comes with that admission, and so they don't bother pursuing it.
And I'll tell you, too, as somebody like myself who had not visited the DIA before, after graduating college, really, Salvador, the director of the DIA, one time was giving a presentation, and I thought the analogy was perfect. And he said that we have to go after the school kids because the first time you take a kid to a Tigers baseball game, they're not paying attention to the game. They're doing this, that, and the other thing. It's not until you start taking them over and over again and it becomes a tradition that kids start to see the value in it. And I know I have now, too, with the DIA because there are a lot of resources there. And in addition, it's fun. I mean, every Mother's Day now, we've been going to the DIA because there's a restaurant, and you can get a mimosa and look at some art and things like that. It's a fun environment. And I'll tell you, though, that on Mother's Day, it was first my mom, now it's all of my aunts, because none of them have been to the DIA prior to that. And I think there's a lot of people in this community who have not taken the time to go to the DIA. And I think that it's on us and you as well in the DIA to try to push and let them know about the resources available. So I appreciate what you guys have done, and I do know, for those that aren't aware, Macomb County has their own DIA board, and then there's an overall DIA board. We make recommendations to them. We have to approve the contract. It's my understanding in talking with Salvador and our board members that if the DIA's funding continues, that we'll be seeing actual art projects in each Macomb County community. And that's still being negotiated with those two boards, but that's something I'm very optimistic about. Because I think people, when they see that benefit, when they see something coming into their community, that's when they're willing to contribute to those efforts. And I think the DIA does contribute to the advancement of not only Clinton Township, but Macomb County. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Pearl?
Yes, thanks for making the presentation tonight. A couple years ago, I saw a DIA presentation. It was a beautiful, functioning semi truck with all the artwork on there that it could fit. And it came to a Parks and Rec event at another community, and I was hoping to get it for our Gracia Cruise event where we have a separate parking area for it. When I asked about it, they said they stopped it.
Right, yeah, that was the DIA Away program, so it was a mobile trailer, double bump out. It was this really magnificent thing that was around for about 5 years, and I had the pleasure of being on that and actually facilitating with the kids coming in when we parked it. Sometimes at fairs and public events, often we brought it to schools, so it was an opportunity to bring classroom after classroom. We could see 9 classrooms in a day, and it was really phenomenal. Everybody had a great time on it. Some people, outside of, above my head here, made a determination that there was a really rewarding project, but it was a very costly thing to keep going, and that we felt like there were other ways we could invest that created more meaningful relationships with the museum and residents.
If you look at one of our programs like the Gracia Cruise, there's 100,000 people out there walking, driving, and we're adding more events to it all the time. If we could get that out there, a lot of people would have the pleasure of seeing those.
Yeah, unfortunately, that contract with the truck was not renewed, although there are other ways we're trying to fill those voids off-site. One of those is off-site drop-in workshops. So our studio can actually come out to different fairs and festivals and create a whole setup with materials and provide opportunity to do make and take projects on those sites. So that's one opportunity to fill a void in a popular public event.
That would be great.
Yeah.
If that's all we could get, I'll take it, but
Yeah, I know, the truck was really cool. I
was hoping to get that.
Yeah, another thing that we do off-site that I didn't mention is something called behind-the-scene talks. These are talks that I know the local library takes advantage of here, where a facilitator actually comes out to a location with projection material and actually lectures on a number of topics. We have a menu of about 16 subjects, and that's also a free offering because not everybody can make it down or does make it down to the museum. So we do have these types of things where we come to you through Inside Out, through our public art programs, through our drop-in workshops and the behind-the-scene talks. So a lot of ways that we try to come out into the community, even if it's not on a big, shiny semi-trailer anymore.
I hope that you'll give your information to our administrative assistant, Stephanie, over there. And,
Oh, yeah,
make
we've
sure
talked.
that anything we can get there,
Yeah.
it would really help.
Absolutely.
Show the people what's available.
And my card is in all of these packets. I'm the
make
kind of liaison for Macomb County, so even if it's not something that I can directly help you with, I can certainly point you to our education director or our studio programs coordinator. I can be the middle person at the very least. Whereas the Inside Out program, that is something I work directly on. Senior programming, I help in booking some of those programs. So there are things that I'm directly involved with. Anything I'm not, I'm happy to connect you with the right person to answer your questions. Yeah.
Mr. Pearl, I believe we had that at the Festival of the Census one year. And I can tell you, because I worked on the one in 2008, they were very easy to work with, and it should be the same way again for you guys. Mr. Gillihan?
So just very briefly, I grew up here in Clinton Township, but I grew up with my parents always having an appreciation for the city of Detroit, and the Historical Museum and the DIA were something, and I can remember being a kid being in awe of the Diego Rivera murals and just reflecting on what a huge impact that had and sort of defining who we are as the Detroit metropolitan region and our history and, with the fact that we are the place where we build things. But one of the things I was really surprised about, my wife is probably on the list because she's a teacher. She just took her fourth grade students down there. And I think Mr. Keys is correct. We need to develop that link with pretty much all of our school districts. So if you're a teacher in the audience, this meeting's not just here, but it's also televised. So if you can tell people how to connect. I did not know that the DIA on Friday nights was open till 10.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. That's great. Went to Cleveland, and I've got events all during the day, and then say want to go to the Rock and Roll Museum, and it actually closes at 5. I'm like, okay, there's something wrong with that rock and roll somehow closing at 5 o'clock. But the fact that the DIA is open until 10 o'clock on Fridays is great. And then these special events, the Shipwreck Museum, talk about another thing defining who we are. So how do people go? What's the website? What's the phone number to call if you're a teacher looking to get your schools? What's the website if you want more information?
Well, the Shipwreck thing is a Thursday program. That's our 55 and up audience. So right now, we're not booking any more. We're not booking any more groups for that, but it's still open for drop-ins. So the Thursdays, we're just not scheduling any more buses because there was a huge demand. There's going to be a lecture on a local diver who visited shipwrecks, and then there's a photography exhibition that's also happening of Great Lakes. Photographs by Jeff Gaydash, who did these really large-scale black and white photography. It's really surreal of different areas around the Great Lakes, and he kind of pinpoints where the photos were taken. It's really a great thing. But that's Thursday. What date is that?
The 12th.
I should be promoting it. It's so popular. I don't want people to show up and
Oh, the
get turned
shipwreck
around.
is the 12th.
But any of the questions you might have, one, you can go to dia.org. Our calendar of events is there. Applications for I think everything I mentioned can be found on there if you prefer to talk to a person. I can be the liaison and point you to any person you might need to talk to. So you can call me at my desk. It's 313-833-9104. That's for Ian Rapnicki's desk. You can email me at irapnicki@dia.org. And yeah, I'll be happy to kind of direct you to the person to talk to about each of these different programs, because they do span to different departments, and there's not one unified person to point you to. So come to me, and I'll point you in the other direction.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion, several motions on the floor.
It says free general admission. What does free general admission mean? Is it the admission you pay and you get all the exhibits, or do you have like a step-up program?
It's a good question. So for the viewing audience at home, so general admission gets you in the door, and there's often programs, special exhibitions that are included in that free general admission. Right now, there's the photography show, Great Lakes Photography. There's an exhibition about Bruegel painting the wedding dance, which is up in the top right corner now. So we have these certain exhibitions that are free. Certain exhibitions we do have to charge admission for, such as Van Gogh coming up. There's when we work with outside institutions, and there's huge transportation and insurance policies that are involved with some of these, we have to charge an admission for those. But those are outside of our service agreements. Anything that falls within our service agreements is free for residents. And then we always try to include as much as we can for free in addition to that. Like Friday night live performances in Rivera Court are part of that free general admission. You can walk in and hang out till 10 and catch a show sometime in the evening. Yeah, it just depends on the event.
Bob Hogan, 36755 Borer Street, Clayton Township. Parking. Do you have a parking structure available, or is there that you can get a discount from DIA, or is there just free parking along the side streets or something?
Very good question. Now, we do have a lot behind the building off John R., which is paid parking. It is $7 for the day, but it's a nice, secure, safe, fenced-in lot, and you have access to a lot of the Midtown area there. It's just a good place to park and call home base. You can even take the Q line down to a baseball game, and, it's a little insider tip there. But there is free parking available. I find it from time to time myself on the streets. It could be challenging because there's metered parking. If you know the secret spots, you can get free street parking. But yeah, that is a challenge that we face is parking. But given the free general admission, we're hoping that parking, $7 for a vehicle that might hold a whole family isn't too much of a deterrent, hopefully.
Let's get back to your parking lot. Is it like 200 cars, 300 cars, or 50 cars?
Oh, 100. That's a good question. It seems to be in the hundreds, if you ask me. It's a really substantial lot. And I don't often, it occasionally fills up. It seems kind of rare, though. It's on really like special events going on. It might fill up, or if there's something going on at a different museum nearby, because it's kind of the cultural center lot for the area. But usually there's plenty of spaces.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Cannon, if I could add in regards to that, I go to the DIA quite a bit, and I love it. But in true to the form of what Mr. Keys had stated and Mr. Gilliam, I learned about the DIA actually in college. I had an art history course at Wayne State University, so we were always in the DIA, and what an incredible opportunity. But to answer Mr. Hogan's concern, I have never had a problem with parking, and I do find those free spots every now and then even on the street parking, it's not that expensive, and it's definitely worth it. And the gift shop is amazing. I go there for Christmas gifts. It's a wonderful place to visit, just to go shopping there.
I had one last question. The basement, is that used for storage, or is that still used for the exhibits, where we could walk through it?
But yeah, the basement is used for storage and other staff kind of locker rooms and things like that. Yeah, no public access in the basement, but we have three public floors. So the first and second floor entirely public. The third floor is partial office space, partial galleries that include like our Dutch and British collection up on the third floor. So there's plenty to explore. Unfortunately, the basement is just for us employees. That's apply for a job or volunteer, and you can get to maybe explore a little bit of those unseen spots. That's part of one of the perks. Yeah.
Thank you, Ian. We're going to take a roll call on the motion, and we will be applying for 2021.
Fantastic.
Mrs. Meltzer?
Thank you. Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're
and
welcome.
for your support.
Is that your,
This is your laptop, but I will get it off the screen here.
okay. Then we'll move to item number 2, request to waive collection box fees on Nunley Drive.
Dear Board of Trustees, we recently received notice that our St. Vincent de Paul clothing collection bin requires a permit from the township along with a $50 permit and $25 per year fee thereafter. St. Thecla Catholic Church has had this bin in the southeast portion of its southerly parking lot off Little Mac Avenue for approximately 3 years without any issues and before this ordinance was enacted. We received no cash rent for this bin. Instead, our St. Vincent de Paul Conference receives $50 a month in store vouchers from St. Vincent de Paul Detroit for use in their stores, with the nearest store in Utica near Van Dyke and 21 Mile Road. Excuse me. We in turn give these vouchers to our neighbors in need within our church service area, which is 100% in Clinton Township. The vouchers generated by this bin, $600 annually, help 12 to 15 low-income households right here in our community with especially boots, coats, hats, seasonal clothing, and even furniture. The people we assist are seldom parishioners, but rather nearby area neighbors in need. Our conference also provides rent, utility assistance, including Clinton Township water bill payment, prescription drugs, gasoline, beds, and/or car repair assistance to low-income residents in our community. We also assist with securing Michigan Energy Assistance grants for payment of overdue gas and electric bills for the same low-income persons in our service area, helping them avoid shutoff. Last year, we assisted families totaling 590 persons through the work of our 12 dedicated volunteers. None of our members are paid. We depend upon our generous St. Thecla Catholic Church parishioners for donations to help our neighbors in need with the above types of assistance. We therefore request that this initial fee of $50 and future fees of $25 per year be waived for our St. Vincent de Paul collection bin. We will continue to provide the annual paperwork for renewal if necessary. Thank you for your consideration, and please contact me if additional information is needed. Judy McMahon, President of St. Thecla Vincent de Paul.
Thank you, and the majority of the good folks in that group are here this evening if we have any questions. Mr. Pearl?
I don't have any questions. It makes sense to me. I'll move that we require a permit but waive all fees.
Support.
Permits.
Other comments or questions? Mr. Gilliam?
Yeah, so I'd like to support that, but just a quick question. This is the actual bin that's at the church, right, at St. Thecla?
That's correct.
Right, so, you know, the intent of this ordinance was that these things were starting to pop up all over the place. They were popping up in vacant lots, they were popping up, and then it was, you know, people setting stuff on the side, and then no one coming out to check it in time, and so they became an issue, and I think that was the intent of the ordinance, but I don't think there's been any issues with this particular one.
There have
And
not. It's
so
very
a
neat and
waiver
clean.
from the ordinance, I think, is in order based upon that history.
Thank you. Mr. Keys?
I just want to say thank you all for coming out and good job, because I just used the bin not that long ago and it was a real clean area. There was actually an officer, I think, finishing a report probably, you know, working in the parking lot. So it was a great environment and I appreciate the access to it. Thank you.
Further comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mrs. West.
Yes.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Melser, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Item 2.5, the splash pad.
Dear board member, there is one term, oops, let me see here, how did that? Oh, the package didn't get changed, hang on one minute. Bob, what item number was that on
18.
yours? 18.
But it might be different.
No, that's okay, I don't think my packet moved. Okay. Dear Township Board members, on Tuesday, February 4th, 2020, Budget Ways and Means Committee met with Frank Pizzo of the Township Parks and Recreation Department and Ken Pearl, Township Trustee, to discuss a proposed plan for a splash pad on Civic Center grounds as pictured in the attached map. The committee discussed in length various pros and cons of the proposal and unanimously voted to recommend Mary Bednar from the Township DPW Department to go out for request for proposal on the proposed splash pad, site work, and parking lot that will include design, build, and concept. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Sincerely, Robert Cannon, Acting Chairperson for the Budget Ways and Means Committee.
Thank you. Mr. Pearl, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you for the Budget Ways and Means recommending this to come forward back to the board. Our Director of Parks and Rec, Frank Pizzo, and Stephanie's worked on this, and Mary Bednar, for a number of months, working on the pros and cons of a splash pad, what it would mean, how much it would cost, who the vendors are. And I think at this point, we're ready to show the board a little bit and go out for an RFP if it's okay with the board. A full scope of what this is involved and what vendors are out there and the pricing. We have some ideas and pricing and engineering and stuff. You might ask why splash pad. I think it's about time for Clinton Township to have one. We have a great Parks Rec area, but we don't have our own building, and we have to house things in different places. This would be located near the Comfort Station existing, which makes it a little cheaper. It's in a great Civic Center area, and it would utilize the existing parking lot with some modifications, but those modifications are coming up anyway, so it wouldn't be that much more. It's budgeted to redo that parking lot to the east of the proposed site. We've taken a look at the needs, and I think Frank and Stephanie can show you a little bit more about what we found. There's also a map that we included in your packet showing the area that was put together by our departments that shows basically there's a number of splash pads in a lot of communities, but there's nothing around us. So people have to go from Clinton Township and pay somewhere else to use it. It's a great playground experience that we don't have now. I believe Frank will tell you that it's been on the master plan for Parks and Rec for years, and I think we now have the money set aside in the general budget to do this. Frank, do you want to lead off, or do you want Stephanie to show the short video that she put together?
Hit your white button. Make sure your button's white. This is just a short video of communities around us and their splash pads. Frank and I went and visited.
Thank you. Frank and Stephanie have gone to many of the parks in the area over the last few months and interviewed the Parks and Rec people there, found out what's involved, what they have learned from their experiences at each of the places, so we have something to build on. This is not that expensive compared to a building, which we probably would need a millage for, which Sterling Heights has. And it's not as expensive as trying to take care of a pool, and yet you can probably hold 240 kids at a time in this, enjoying the summer. You know, it goes from the two holidays, Memorial Day, Labor Day, and it functions on a basis that the water would not be running if it was not in use. So they actually have to push a button to start it. And there's a lot of things that make sense, and there's been a lot of improvements in this. It would be a universal splash pad available for all people, which is important nowadays to accommodate everybody. So, Frank, you want to give us a little story about what you think?
No stories. Just want to reiterate, last 10 years of master plans, it's 5 years ago, our last master plan, it was number 2 out of 21 amenities selected by residents in our community. Number 1 was an outdoor pool, and number 2 was a splash pad. This last recreation master plan, it jumped to number 1, and the outdoor pool dropped to 3. Outdoor pools cost a lot of money. If you look at Sterling Heights, they're building a community center with no pool on the inside. That's where your costs are. Everyone we talk to that is running a pool, depending on cost recovery, which would be guided by our board, it would be able to recover all operational costs. Again, that would be up to the board and be something we'd cross that bridge when we get to it. But it's an amenity that's been requested in this community. It's been trending for the last 10 years. Mary always jokes and says we're missing the trend. I just got back from Florida recently, and there's splash pads everywhere. Texas, one community has 33 pools in their community. It's a large community, obviously, 900,000 residents, but they've got rid of their larger pools and gone to splash pads because of the operational costs can be covered where pools can't. We looked at social responsibility on this, which I think is really important, looking at underground waste to recycle the water. Mary was a big part of that, and it's something we want to make sure the community knows that we want to be socially responsible. The universal design is a great thing we want to do in our community, which would complement Mr. Gillaham's playground that we're looking to do, so it would combine well with our vision of recreation and what we'd want in this community. This community doesn't have a recreation building, which who knows now, looking at the way the economy's gone, might have not been a super bad thing. We have great recreational opportunities and programs in our community. This will be another amenity that the residents, families, all ages would be able to utilize, and I think it'd be a reason for people to move back into our community that maybe have left, and we've seen them coming back already. This will just be another reason to come back to Clinton Township, and I think can keep Clinton Township prosperous.
Thank you.
Just to finish up, and then I'll go into the specifics of a motion that I'm looking for. But Frank's right. The kids need something, and older people, adults can use this. All ages. Yep. Right now, you have to go to. If you don't want to spend money in another community, you can go to Partridge and stand in the water scooters that are in. I don't know if that was designed, or some people go over to our George Park and
Which
they're not supposed to go and go over there.
Good point.
Into those waterways, but basically, the schools tell me that our community is having more younger families move in. Our schools are busier than ever, are being filled up, and actually, schools are peaking right now, where 10 years ago there was reversal. So I think people are selling their homes to younger families that are moving in, and they would like to see the simple thing like this. You know, Frank's right. A pool, if I remember in Chippewa Valley, my years over there, we put a pool in. It was $500,000 a year just to maintain the chemicals and the water and the cost of people to maintain it. This, as Frank said, would be free with some small user fees, which everybody pays in every community, a minor amount. And with the staffing that's being worked out, it really would pay for itself. So
I want to mention our day camp hit an all-time high last year, 900 children in our day camp program. So those numbers are increasing, and we're hoping to get one more building from a school district, and we'd probably break 1,000 this year.
Yeah, we have to beg the schools to let us use buildings.
And we thank them for that, because a lot of communities don't get them for free, so they work well with us.
Right. So I'll turn it over to the board, and I have a motion to finalize this after questioning.
Why don't we make the motion?
Okay.
Just put it on the floor.
The motion I have is looking for an RFP for design, build a universal splash pad for a vendor, for utilities and grading for the splash pad, for fencing, landscaping, chairs and umbrellas, and comfort station upgrades. Additionally, we would like the parking lot replacement that's under a separate capital improvement budget would probably be moved up a year or something, but it's been in there, and that may have to be modified to get more parking for all the parks areas that we're talking about putting in there. So that would be simple to do it while we're redoing that park. So there would be, and then the second part of the motion is Mary recommended that we, as other communities have done, create a splash pad committee of, it would be Bob Cannon, Frank Pizzo, Stephanie, our planning director, Bruce, Mary Bednard, Barry Miller, director of buildings, Brian Gerard, and myself, along with AEW staff and other township staff as needed, to recommend the, to go out for the RFP and to review all the designs that come back and recommend to the board a qualified contractor that would coordinate all the work together. So they're responsible for everything. That's Mary's recommendation also.
That's your entire
That's my
Yeah.
motion.
That's
All motion.
a heck of a motion.
I'll support
Did
it.
I put myself down also as a member of the?
Yes, you
Yes, you
did.
did.
Yes, you did.
But I do have a question for the motion maker. I support it, I do have a question on the motion. Something we had discussed, and I actually, I went out to one of the Parks and Rec conferences in Novi that Frank recommended, and I know a couple of the vendors were talking about the difference between flow-through and recycled water. And I believe we had talked about when the RFP goes out, we're actually going to try and get a price on both, because I know sometimes it's beneficial for one, sometimes it's beneficial for the other.
That
We
would be,
do want
the
to be
committee
economically
will be
friendly.
looking for both.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so that is going to be, so we're going to get both on the RFP? Okay.
Right.
All right. While I'm at it, I do have a couple other questions.
Yes.
Okay. So this is going to be a universal design. Have we looked into any grants to help us along the way? Because I know that things that are for the community benefit, if they're of universal design, there is quite a few grants out there. I know the county is kind of my expert that I usually go to over at Planning and Economic Development. Whenever I'm talking about something of universal design, they have that. So I don't know, have we talked to them at all yet? Can we talk to them? Thank you.
Frank, are
Okay.
you aware of any grants in the?
I know in the past, Linda Walter, our past director, has gone for universal grants for splash pads. They were not recognized because splash pads were so popular at the time, we weren't getting grants for it. But
Okay.
universal design is a major topic, and it is a trending thing in our field. So it would be something that we would bend onto the planning department to try to go after some grants.
Okay. I know I talked with Jerry Santoro.
We always look for any
This type of stuff.
financing we can, so yeah, definitely.
Great. All right.
Yep.
And then you had mentioned some type of cost recovery?
Yeah, well, cost recovery is every program we take a peek at and look at. So to give you a history, which I'm not trying to be funny, but politics sometimes gets involved.
No.
So many, many years ago, day camp used to be free. And so we had elected officials that loved that the program was free, and they could tell the residents, your taxes might be a little higher in Clinton Township, but you get day camp for the program for free. So then half the board at the time told me, we have to recover some money for this cost recovery. So Denny Tomlinson, who I love dearly, said, we're not going to charge for this. And some said, we need to charge something, so give us $50. Denny said, I'd agree to $5 if you give them a T-shirt. So that's what I was dealing with. So cost recovery, we will come with a
Not a bad deal.
recommendation on how you could recover cost of operational on it, and we'll
Okay.
tell you the fee structure, and then that would be approved by you guys.
Okay, so is that something that's going to go before the board?
It's something, if you request
Or
that,
excuse me,
we definitely would bring that in front of the board. We give our information at budget, and then you guys approve our budget, but since this is a new project, it definitely would be something I would bring in front of the board.
Okay, so that'll
Yep.
be something we'll discuss.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I guess my last thing, two things actually, really. Ken, I don't know if it was you, I don't know who decided to put the map on this, on the agenda, but I think that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah.
I've been in support
I'll
of.
take credit for it.
Okay, great. I've been in support of a splash pad for a while. In fact, when I became a trustee, I remember Frank looking at me and saying, "We need a splash pad here." I go, well, tell me why. And 10 minutes later, I'm like, "All right, I'm on board. Let me
Right.
know when." So I thought it was a great idea. But when you look at this map, right in the middle, there's a giant hole, no
Yeah.
splash pad. So that's convincing right there. That's good.
Yeah, and I know
Thank
there's
you.
been
Thank you for
requests,
your work.
there's been requests from friends and families and, our participants that said, it's going to be up at the Township Civic Center. And that's always, it can be an issue when I speak with residents. But there's a reason it's going to be there is it is our civic center, and the location where the Comfort Center is where we received a grant years ago that'll save a ton of money on a concession stand, 2 restrooms, and access for our staff to get there, and we can sell passes out of our office. So that is a reason why we have looked at the Civic Center. Same with Sterling Heights. They did it in their Civic Center.
Mr. Keys?
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. And Frank, this isn't really directed at you.
Okay.
But, when this had first come up to go to Budget Ways and Means, I gave my speech about the South End Parks and the North End Parks and how we need to make sure that we're spreading this
Yep.
out. I'm very pleased that we are going with the splash pad, of course. Mr. Perley had said some people might be surprised. No one's surprised. These have been a trend in communities for 10 years.
Correct.
And so what I hope that we do in this RFP process is we don't just build what other communities have. As you say, Partridge Creek, the map that shows these other ones. Let's be progressive and make sure we build in there for these companies to educate us on what's the next trend in
Yep.
splash pads and water activities. So that way we're not always following the leader. We are the leader. And then I hope too that we can work on some of these. Yeah. Yep.
Sorry. So Frank and I were working together, and we came up with, and we visited a lot of splash pads, and Mary Bednar actually came to us with a couple of different suggestions on how we could stand out, just like you're saying, make ours a little bit different, and maybe, and this was just, we were spitballing ideas, but maybe go with a historical type look to kind of tie together with the historical committee and with the museum that's there, and kind of make ours different. Or I don't know if you recalled from the video, but Shelby Townships has like a firefighter theme or things like that. When we went to the expo, they had all different, either you can pick off the shelf, the different hoses and everything that it is, available, or you can create your own utility. Kind of the nice part, can you scroll up just a little bit? Kind of the unique part about ours is how we were utilizing the area that was available to us, and Magda makes an amazing map, and she was able to we're going to have I don't know if we can get the full screen. It's full screen.
That's okay.
No.
It doesn't work. I'll just make it.
We'll be able to have areas universally to be able to house everybody. So instead of like Sterling Heights or Grosse Pointe, where it's just a big circle, ours will kind of be a kidney shape to follow the kidney shape of the parking lot, and that'll be able to utilize, so the small kids will have an area, the older kids will have an area, and people will feel like they get a space of their own within this design.
That's awesome, and I'm glad that everyone's mindful of that, because that's really what my fear is with this project, is that, again, we're following that leader, and I want to be the leader. So, and I have confidence with this team. Yeah, Mary?
I would like to caution with the parking lot, we're looking to maybe go with a rectangle parking lot, because then we could, with the same footprint, get more parking for the patrons and so forth. So do not get tied into the shape of the, because we might be able to modify it. But I do agree with what Stephanie said. The idea is to have separate areas so that you don't have the big kids picking on the little kids and the little kids wanting to be a big kid when they should, we do want to keep the areas separate and so forth so that it's clear and safe for everyone. But don't get locked into the design, because that's actually why we are going out for an RFP. Like Ken, it's a design build. So we give them the ideas. Hey, we think we want to go historical, but they come back and say, well, how about this bucket? Or how about this? Or how, oh, you know what, you want to do a horse? Or we let them lead us into what is the best design build.
Awesome. Yeah, and a couple other comments I would say is that I hope too this presentation maybe could be made available to some of our Parks and Rec committee members, because I know that for, the inclusive playground and for this project, we're starting new committees, but we do have a committee, and my fear sometimes is that we start these subcommittees to do very specific projects, but then those other parks get neglected because there's not a committee focused, and our staff is absolutely, but a committee of the public that can give their perceptions and their wants in that. And I think that would be great. And Mr. Pearl, if you don't mind, I would love to volunteer for this committee and join you on that. I think it would be a great endeavor. I didn't join I wasn't able to join the inclusive park because there was already 3 trustees, but seeing that there's only 2 here, I'd love to join.
Well, I'm on it. Yes, you could be on it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Because I think that we need
I'll
to.
make that as part of the motion.
Sure.
I
Okay.
appreciate that. I think we need to be thinking about that in terms of all of our parks. We have some, and I was on my soapbox last time, so I won't do it, but you got basketball courts without rims, and you're building brand-new equipment at Civic Center grounds. You got to spread that out so that way animosity doesn't grow. People can see that amenity of Richmond in their community. So, thank you.
With Mrs. Bednar on the committee, it will be just like our parking lot. It will be one of a kind. It will win awards, so count on it.
Mr. Cannon, thank you.
Mr. Gilliam?
So one, thank you for all the work that's gone into this. I know, Frank, it's been on your agenda forever, and Stephanie and Ken, you guys have been going out for a year now and sort of putting plans together. And, it's always nice to see the plans come to fruition. But when it came to Budget Ways and Means, I was a little bit concerned because I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Are we, I'm hearing an RFP for the parking lot. I'm hearing an RFP for the engineering, and then I'm hearing for the grading and the design, and then an RFP for the actual, design and build and, actually installing the equipment and all of that, and then the accompaniments that actually go with it. So I think the committee is the right way to go. And so I'm glad to hear that. And then I think one of the first things is we need a timeline as to, what is the proper sequence of this? Because I think there's multiple steps here. So I'm glad to see that the committee was part of this recommendation, because it was like, again, there's a lot going on here, but we need to do it cost affordably, but I think having the committee will focus on that, so.
I just want to mention one other thing. It's going to be great, not only for the community, for the children, because everyone keeps saying that, but it's really an intergenerational.
Right.
The one trend I can tell you, working in Parks and Recreation for the last 31 years, right around there, you're seeing grandparents raising children. That's what we're seeing now. So grandparents are at our counter registering, and we'll have grandparents and cousins and aunts and everybody out there that raise that community, raise that child. They'll be out at that splash pad. So this is just not for children. It's also for our seniors. It's everyone out there. It's another opportunity, recreational opportunity for the family.
Oh, yeah. So, and I'm assuming as the committee comes up with these recommendations, they'll be coming back before the board.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mrs. West?
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. A couple of questions. First of all, Mr. Pearl, in there, did you have in the RFP that would have long-term costs? Like after the first year, after putting it in? What are the long-term costs going to be?
We already have that.
You already have that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because they went, and I can't tell you how much work Frank, Stephanie, and Mary have done already.
Okay.
And I appreciate it. And yes, Stephanie had the map done.
All right.
Magda did the math. Let's make sure we don't make Magda upset. She gives us a lot
Magda
of
made
math.
the math, yeah.
Right. But listen, as part-time
Success has many
trustee,
fathers.
I have to rely on staff, and our staff is fantastic.
Their parents.
And they have worked on this. Obviously, they have regular jobs to do, too. This was just something that they worked into their schedules, when they had time available.
Okay. Thank you.
But
They-
Joey, to answer to that too, Mary put together an awesome spreadsheet that I think will be part of the RFP process, because we just kind of picked out in the air, because, at this point, we're just searching. But with cost effective and pros and cons, like Joe was talking about with the flow through versus recycling. And we did bring those to Budget Ways and Means, those figures. But we did also visit Grosse Pointe Farms that you saw in the presentation.
They're one of
That
the
splash pad is almost 20 years old.
so they got it.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
And they do resurface, they paint every, I think they said 8 to 10 years, they put down some new paint just to keep it vibrant, but they haven't had to replace any of their utilities at this point.
Another question would be, I know with pools, part of the cost is the, putting in all the chemicals and all that. What is in this to try to decrease any sort of infection, people going through it?
Yeah, go ahead, Mary.
So this has to meet the pool requirements.
Okay.
The difference is a pool, because it's a contained system, so it's much bigger.
Right.
But it does have to meet the pool requirements. But quite frankly, so do our fountains. For example, our fountains in George meet pool requirements.
Okay.
That does not mean, public, that you can go be in those pools.
That's what I was gonna say.
That is against the town,
Right.
the park rules. There's signs that say that. And for education purposes, because of the type of material, you could get very hurt. So that's why you cannot be in those. But with that, going back to the splash pads, so we do have to meet the pool requirements, so there are permits. But there are two different types of systems, and that's what we're going to have to look into and look at the cost and so forth, so that we can make an educated decision on what is the proper system. We've done some preliminary numbers. I've talked with different companies, but we really need to talk to the company, the vendor that we're going to choose, and find out their numbers, so that we can make an informed decision, not just a roundabout decision.
Okay, because I always, I'm always going to worry about infection. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the community?
Bob Hogan, 36755 Bar Street, Clinton Township. We are catching up to Detroit. We really are. I was in Chandler Park splash pool in the 50s. Now we are getting up to the splash pool in Clinton Township. But what they had was a guy with a wheelbarrow with chlorine in it, and he had a shovel, and he'd throw it in, and that would be the way they'd sanitize the water.
We could hire
What
Mr. Hogan.
we hire that guy back. What department takes care of sanitizing this and measuring it, like taking samples?
Just like we do in our fountains, the Department of Public Services would take care of that.
That'd be your department. Frank Pizzo said there'd be 240 children in the pool.
Splash pad.
Where's the, in the splash pool? Where would the pool be located? I don't think I understand that. Can you point or something like that, or
No, right.
is that like half of the senior center, that side there?
No.
It's the one down where we have the concerts, towards the left.
Okay,
By the historical building?
that way. How many additional parking places are we going to have for 240 kids, most likely 2 or 3 to a family?
Well, that parking lot has not been designed yet. Mrs. Bednar just indicated that it will not be the shape that it is now. It will be rectangular so we can get more. But we do have other places that people can park should there be an overflow crowd. We have the Civic Center parking lot right here, so that somebody might have to walk 100 yards. But we do have a lot of extra parking.
No, I understand, but the 4th of July is going to pull in a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
And we have other activities, that's all I was asking about. It won't be open.
Fourth of July.
Okay, I think I'm all set.
Thank you. We have a motion and a support on the floor.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 3, introduction of applicants for the Cultural Diversity Committee.
Dear board members, there is one open term on the Cultural Diversity Committee. Both terms will expire on November 30th, 2021. One application was received from Mr. Mark D. Alexander for appointment to the Cultural Diversity Committee, which was attached for your review. Per the policy guidelines, an invitation has been extended to all applicants to attend the February 18th, 2020 board meeting, in which they will be provided an opportunity to introduce themselves to the Board of Trustees, whereby each being given a 3-minute time limit in which to do so. Thank you, Stephanie Middlestead, Administrative Assistant.
Thank you. Now, our applicant is here this evening.
Good evening, board and community. My name is Mark Alexander. I know with the short time I have at the podium, I want to do a brief introduction of who I am. So I'm going to break into three categories: my love for people, my love for family, my love for being a leader. So my love for people came from me being born and raised in good old Pontiac, Michigan, where I learned the importance of having a diverse education. I started a nonprofit organization back there called Youth of Tomorrow. We expose youth to innovative educational programs. It was that same passion as a young man that led to me being involved in the Clendale Community School Board as an adult. But one thing I realized in that love for people was that our youth grew up. So I had to make sure that my own self, my wisdom was growing as well, which is why I'm taking this new step in my life to be involved with not just the youth, but our seasoned leaders and community people here in Clinton Township. My love for family. So of course, I'm not one to make hasty decisions. So when this opportunity came up, I had to do some praying. Most importantly, I had to get a very powerful endorsement from my wife. Because one thing you'll realize with me is a work-wife balance, because I'm so involved in so many things that I have to make sure that I'm still giving that same love to my family that I'm giving to my community. So when she endorsed it and said this is something that we are going to pursue, and I say we because I'm taking time away. With my involvement in this committee, I'm going to give 150%. And I realize that 150 is going to take away from my house, but having her endorsement was powerful. Going to my love for being a leader, it's a lot of growth that I'm still doing here in Clinton Township. I'm big on obtaining wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. There was a quote that was shared with me. If you're the smartest person in the room, you need to change the room. With the diversity community, I see this as a way to expand my room. There's so much here in this community that I want to learn about. It's so much we can give. And not only will I give this passion and positivity to the community, but I see it pouring that same passion and positivity back into me. So if given the opportunity, I would love the opportunity to work alongside with you guys on the Cultural Diversity Committee. And again, my name is Mark Alexander, and I'm an applicant for the Cultural Diversity Committee with Clinton Township.
Thank you. Mr. Alexander, your reputation being a board member precedes you.
Thank you.
We have one opening and we have one person. I'll make a motion that we appoint him this evening.
I think it was the best speech we had.
Yeah.
It was very good.
Yeah, really.
We'd be pleased to have you as part of this committee.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate it.
probably many others down the road.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that. And I do apologize. I won't be able to.
He's a great candidate for us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Roll call?
Right.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melcher, yes, motion passes.
Welcome to the committee.
Thanks so much. Appreciate y'all. Now, I do apologize because going back to the work-wife balance, I had a long day at work, so I can't stay the full meeting because I have to make sure I have dinner with my lovely wife who endorses. So we're going to celebrate and toast it. So thank you guys again for the opportunity. Community, I'm looking forward to serving you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4, request approval to reserve the Prince Drury Park for the 14th Annual Community Kite Day.
Dear Clinton Township Board of Trustees, the planning for the 14th Annual Community Kite Day is underway. This letter is to request placement on the next available board agenda for usage of the Prince Drury Park as the venue for Saturday, May 2nd, 2020, from 12 to 3 p.m. If you have any questions, concerns, or need further information, please contact me. Warm regards, Jerry Brown, Kite Day Coordinator.
Mrs. Bednar, we did check to make sure that day was open, did we not?
Yes, we did.
Thank you.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Support. Supported by Mrs. Meltzer. It's been a great success. Mrs. Brown, did you want to mention anything about the event? She wants to sit quietly and get 7 yes votes. So,
Mr. Pearl.
Yeah, she's coming
Yes. Oh,
up.
wait.
She's coming up now.
Here she comes.
Good evening.
Good
Thank
evening.
you so very much for always supporting the Kite Day. 14th, I can't believe that it's 14 years already. It seems like it was just yesterday when I came up here asking for 500 hot dogs or whatever, but I certainly appreciate you all.
we
And that
appreciate what
will
you do
be
for
May
all the
2nd.
children.
Me.
Mr. Aragona?
Yeah, I just want to say, Jerry, thank you very much for everything you do. Mr. Cannon and I were out at your event last year. I got to say, there's no moss on you because you were rolling all over the place, working very hard. So well
Yes,
done.
we usually do.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call?
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mrs. Melcher, yes. Mrs. West.
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 5, Habitat for Humanity application for 2019 home funds.
Item 6, there is no letter on that. I think,
Yeah, there's.
There is,
why don't I see-
Yeah, we have a letter.
Where's my board packet? It's not.
Bless you.
Oh, here it is. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. It's the next one. There's no letter. Dear Township Board members, on Tuesday, February 4th, 2020, the Budget Ways and Means Committee met with Matt Wallace of the Township Planning Department to discuss the 2019 Home Funds application from Habitat for Humanity. The committee unanimously voted to approve the application as requested below. The application submitted from HFH is requesting $142,485 in 2019 home funds for the construction of a new home at parcel number 16-11-12-177-001, located at the southeast corner of Buckingham and Stipnitz. As indicated in the timeline included, the home would be started in April 2020, and HFH expects to close on its sale in December of 2021. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Sincerely, Robert Cannon, Acting Chairperson for the Budget Ways and Means Committee.
Now, I understand that this home is going to be built on-site, not at the Dakota Center as it has been done in the past. And there's probably a lot of reasons for that. One of those is when you're building inside a storage area like that, you don't get the elements, you don't get some of the things that you would get if you were really in the building trades. So these high school students are now going to be bused to the site, and that's how it will be completed. It will also save on the transportation of half of a house and half of a house going separately. So this is what we've done every year. 15% of our money has to go into housing, to a county rule. So this is, we feel, a good use of these funds.
So
to
moved.
approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Pearl, supported by Mrs. Meltzer. Mr. Keys?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Cannon. Just on this topic, since we have the assistant planner here, I'm curious, not for this particular project, but have we talked to Habitat and Humanity in the past about some more progressive builds? I know that in East Point and some other communities right now, they're focusing on these storage, shipping containers. And I'm not saying that that would make sense for this parcel. I'm just wondering if that's a conversation that's going on.
No, it is not going on with us, but if you'd like to come up and tell us who you are, and maybe you know something that's hot off the press.
Hi, welcome. My name is Helen Hicks. I'm the president and CEO of Macomb County Habitat for Humanity. And first, I just want to say thank you to this group and to the community for doing this. It's a wonderful partnership between you all and the county as well as Dakota High School. And every one of those students that goes through that program who wants a career in construction is hired in their senior year. So it's really amazing. As far as the container homes, that was a grant from Ford Motor Company. We did put the RFP out to all communities. We received 3 communities responded, and the one we selected happened to be East Point. But we are getting so much excitement over the concept of container homes that we are getting more funding. So we will come back to you at that time. You may want to see a couple of the pilots before you actually make a decision. The only concern some of the folks have had are, that they're really small.
Right.
And they're bigger than tiny homes, but clearly not as big as the homes that we're building with you now. So as we perfect that model and use Ford's design team, I think you'll be quite impressed.
Great. Well, that sounds very progressive to me, and I'll keep an eye out, because I think that, again, I'm not saying for this parcel in particular, but I think in the future, it's definitely something we should consider. So thank you.
Good to know.
I got a quick question.
Mr. Aragona?
Yeah, so with these homes, are they only using one container? Because I remember, so I have a cousin out in Grand Rapids who was working for charter schools, and they're actually building charter schools with multiple containers. So how does that work with a home?
So Ford, their grant was for $100,000. So they ended up showing us designs with 1.5 and some other products, wood, other types of materials. So it almost looks like, like this, with then some, like a V, with some other products here.
Okay.
And so we could go as many as 2, but the more containers you use, the bigger the unit, the more it costs, just like any home.
Right.
So we've been keeping it fairly small.
Okay, interesting. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Gilliam?
Okay. So if I could, for the interest of a disclosure, Helen did reach out to Clinton Township about the issue of container homes, and we did talk with the building department. We reached out to the Public Services Department, and we decided that the focus right now is really on the great partnership that we do have,
Yes.
which is Habitat's located here. Their office is in Baker College, so we've got
Soon
some-
to be moving, so if you have any
we've got some
space.
decisions to make there as well. So if there's available office space and you're watching, you want to contact them. Secondly, this is a great program because it's the students building. When I was in, to Mr. Cannon's point, when I was in high school, I had friends that were in the Clintondale Build program, and that was a 2-hour block course, and they would literally hop on the bus. So while everyone was going to their other classrooms, they were going to the front of the building with their coats on and tool belts on, and actually going out and building the houses. So I think that's a cool thing. I like to see getting back to that. But to speak more about this partnership, we've basically obtained these lots. I think mostly lots that people were speculating on, lots that people had. We want to locate where there's actually existing water and sewer lines. And when people have speculated on them, the economy crashed. We wound up with a lot of them, particularly in the northeast part of the township. Right on the border with Mount Clemens. We donate these lots to Habitat.
Yes.
Pretty much, there's a $100
Yep.
sort of charge, if you will, and that covers all the paperwork. And then they have done phenomenal, and they've actually created neighborhoods, and they've created affordable housing. And this comes full circle, and I appreciate the fact that one of the flyers, the inserts with our packet was the lack of availability of affordable housing. Pretty much in every county throughout the United States, people don't know that this is a huge pending problem. I went to a talk yesterday where they pretty much identified the fact that 39% of Macomb County and 45% of the state of Michigan is living on wages coming into the household that is less than what you would need to support a family. And that's based upon a new standard. Mostly everyone looks at poverty rates, or they look at 150% of poverty rates, and that doesn't even come close to what it really costs to raise a family. And so the United Way has come up with what they call their ALICE project.
Yes.
And the ALICE project is basically saying, okay, you need technology. You need a phone when no one has a phone in their house anymore. You need transportation. You need all the things that kids need if you have children in the household. And that poverty rate and that 100%, or rather 150% of poverty doesn't even come close to taking care of that. So Habitat, you're doing tremendous work.
Thank you.
And we appreciate actually helping us create neighborhoods within our community.
And we rarely get the opportunity to say it publicly, but this partnership is probably the single most powerful partnership we have right now, and I just want to thank you so much. And I did have an experience this year where we had some issues behind the scenes, and you are right, Mary Bednar saved the day. She was amazing. Not like you all don't too, but Mary, you rock it. You really do. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. One of the things I like about the program is that you take a family and you give them new life and new hope. They put their sweat into it, and very few, I think I've known of only one of those families has lost the house. Because not only do you put their backs to work, but you put their minds to work and teach them how to manage their monies.
Yeah.
And that's extremely important. And what I found, and I'm sure you have too, is that many of the people moving into these homes are so proud of them because they're some of the nicer homes in the neighborhood.
Thank you for saying that. But if it wasn't for your inspectors, they might not be as nice as they are, so.
And we have good inspectors,
It's a good
too.
partnership.
Very, very conscientious. Mr. Pearl?
Years ago, the schools used to have to build the students would build the homes, and then they would sell them through a real estate deal. This is much more advantageous for the kids and for everybody involved. And doing it with Macomb County Habitat for Humanity, I mean, you're providing something. So I've seen these families helping build these homes, and we have a dramatic shortage in skilled trades. And these kids are learning, going out actually in the weather and building it is fantastic, because that's what they'll be doing in real life. We won't be under a garage.
I know,
So-
I'm pretty excited about the fact that they're going to be, putting their gear on and actually coming out in the winter months and realizing that that's what it's like if you decide to go into that trade, So it's a great new shift, I think, in the way that things are going to be done.
Thank you. We have a motion and a support on the floor.
Mr.
Roll call,
Pearl.
please.
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Messer, yes. Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
You're welcome. And our next item is item 6, public hearing for Community Development Block Grant 20 and 21 actual plan.
And now we can hear from Matt, correct? There is no letter.
This is our Assistant Director, Mr. Matt Wallace.
Hello, I'm just getting my presentation ready.
I think he's got to hit the button, and so do you.
Where'd Fonzie
He
go?
knows.
Did you release
Yeah.
it? Okay.
Where did Fonzie go?
I thought that was
that.
funny. Maybe I just want to laugh to show I got the reference.
Yeah, yeah. See, These are so cool.
Very cool.
That's what organization do for retirement.
Have you seen those shipping containers? They stack them on top.
Yeah.
I even like this.
They build hotels modular now,
Shipping
Is that a pool?
Yeah.
She's got one pulled up with the pool.
Something in it?
He already knows. that
We'd
he's
have to
in there.
allow for a variance, but I think it's worth it. I think.
Oh, this guy does awesome work, too.
Well, if they're getting a grant from Ford,
Yeah,
right?
it's on
That's
my
what she said.
Is it?
No.
It's not coming up?
Right.
He's been-
No, I
Did
get
you,
it.
is
I'm
that
saying the
turning,
abundance
is it
from-
red or white?
It's blinking red.
Okay. Can you hold it? Yeah.
Bad sign when it's blinking red.
No, I think it's supposed to be like that. Hold it down.
I'll just hold it.
Well, we have it here.
Doesn't work.
I don't have it. It's not on.
There was something in there.
We don't have it.
Oh,
I don't have it on the public.
that one was red. I thought it was.
Maybe
I
it
guess the
doesn't
last
work
one.
for you.
Kim, you're still white or are you blinking?
Wait, is it
Bummer.
supposed to be white?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. There was the police officers that were.
Matt, are you able to do it without your
Um,
screen?
Sure. So let me just understand, you can see what's on my screen or no?
We cannot.
Nope.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I guess I have to. Okay, so the purpose of today's meeting is to solicit ideas for the Community Development Block Grant. It's the 2021 Annual Action Plan. Last year, we did the 5-year consolidated plan. That's a longer-term document that lays out the map for the 5 years. Now we can just concentrate on the coming year. Okay, so CDBG, which is the easier term for Community Development Block Grant, is intended for at least 70% of the grant must be used to benefit low and moderate income residents. That can be either an area benefit. For example, this year we're doing Normandy Park, which has a low moderate income area that it's serving. At least 51% of the residents served by that park are considered 80% or less of the area median income. Another way you can benefit low and moderate income people is through what's called limited clientele, and that's serving a population that's either assumed to be low, moderate income or verified. So the senior center, senior citizens are assumed to be a low, moderate income population. Another way you can meet that requirement is to verify someone's income and provide them a service that usually would cost someone money for free. We do that through the Parks and Rec. Low, moderate income kids can get services that other kids pay for. Another way you can serve low, moderate income people is through housing. We have a housing rehab program that's in its 30th year and has spent over $5 million on fixing up so far about 364 homes. And then finally, the last way you can serve low, moderate income residents is through job creation. I don't think that's something we've done in the past, but it's an option. And the way to do that is if you have a project that is coming in and you see an opportunity for that to create jobs for people who are currently low, moderate income, you partner with them and, put some CDBG funds towards that project, like on infrastructure or building something or helping them out with a cost to make the project more viable. That one you have to be careful though, because you have to follow through on the job creation, and 51% of the jobs created have to go to low, moderate income people. So you got to. That's why I say you should probably join a project that's kind of already in the works, because you need to be sure that those jobs are going to be there. And then with the 30% that's not to service low, moderate income, up to 30%, you can do slum and blight removal. So you can have a program where you set aside funds for, say, houses that have, been abandoned or have become vacant and blighted. But they don't have to be abandoned. I mean, if someone's there and they just can't afford to, upkeep the property, you can come in and use CDBG funds to help alleviate the problem. Okay, my next slide is a pie chart. This is one of the unfortunate parts about our technical difficulties. We've done a pretty good job of divvying up the spending. 15% has gone to infrastructure. That's things like handicap ramps, sidewalks. Those are the examples I can think of. 12%, and this is over the last 5 years, from 2015 to 2019. 12% has gone to parks. That includes the Normandy Park project, which is going out for bid as we speak. $425,000 have gone to the senior center. That's about 16% of the spending from the last 5 years. Again, like I said, that's benefiting seniors, so that's an activity we can assume is benefiting low, moderate income people. 24% of our program funds have gone towards the housing rehab program. That's about $638,000. But because we put liens on any property that uses those funds, when those houses are sold, the money that we put into those comes back to us. So in the last 5 years, we've programmed $638,000. We've spent about $1.1 million because of money coming back into the program. And like this year, when I got here last year, we had about $170,000 in funds from that program income. And so we only had to budget about $80,000 to get to the $250 that we usually spend. And we're pretty close to being through that money already. So I'm bringing up the housing rehab program because that's probably going to be something we're going to need to find some room for in this year's budget. But again, this is just the kickoff for the CDBG program. You know, right now, all ideas are on the table. No, you know, nothing's off the table. And then 15% of the CDBG spending from the last 5 years has gone towards public services. That's things like benefiting the homeless, benefiting victims of domestic or child abuse, things like that. And that's actually the cap on the public services for CDBG. You can't spend more than 15% on that area. And then we've spent 18% on administration. That's paying for staff salaries. And last year, we set aside money for fair housing testing. This year, we're probably going to have to set aside for what's called an analysis of impediments to fair housing. That's just have someone like the Fair Housing Center come in and take a look at, make sure we're providing fair housing in the township, and give suggestions for how we can improve in that area. I'd like, like I said, we're going to have to address the housing rehab program a little bit. Like I said, we've been doing it for, well, we've been putting liens on the properties for about 30 years. This is the 30th year of the program working the way it has. 364 projects completed. Over $5 million have been spent, and for an average of about $14,000 per project. And the reason it works out to about $14,000 is we have an emergency program with a cap of $8,000, and then we have a housing quality standards portion of the program that has a cap of $25,000. So, you know, there's a pretty even mix between those two programs, and so naturally the average works out about halfway between those caps. The emergency program, you know, if someone's got water in their basement, sewer problems, leaky roof, things that we need to get in and address quickly to, you know, not sacrifice the integrity of the home, we get in there and do what needs done. And then the housing quality standard brings the entire home up to an agreed upon quality standard. This is the really unfortunate part. We had and I can share this, I can put it online, but what we did was made a map of those 364 housing projects to show the areas of the city or of the township that are receiving that work. And I put it side by side with the low-income census block groups just to kind of show that we're hitting the right neighborhoods for, I mean, you know, we're getting into the neighborhoods that you would hope when you have a low, moderate income program.
Mr. Wallace, can you say, wait 1 second, Mr. Keys?
Just on that point, before we move on, when you're looking at that, is it a very clear district, or is it spread out throughout the township?
The low, moderate income areas, it's pretty clear. I mean, on here, the census block groups that are 51% low, moderate income are brown, and they're, you know, pretty clearly delineated southeast, northeast corners.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. King.
And then, you know, what's nice is you can see from the other map that we're getting people, we're helping people in those same areas for the most part. But eligibility for the program isn't on an area basis, it's individual. So you do have a few, you know, projects in surprising areas, but I mean, you know, sometimes someone's spouse passes away or they inherit a home or something, so you'll see it in areas that you wouldn't maybe not expect. And then, like I said, the purpose today of this public hearing, which is open to the public if anyone has any thoughts, is to encourage suggestions from the board and the public for direction in our use of funds for 2020 and 2021. Some things I'd like for everyone to be thinking about are what problems are we not addressing, and how can CDBG help meet the township's goals from things like the strategic plan and the master plan.
Very good.
And like I said, I'll talk to IT about trying to get this presentation online so that, we can visually see what I've been talking about.
Very good. You did a very good job of explaining it. And
Thank you.
I'm sure you probably heard about the president's budget where he cut out all CDBG. I can assure you that we were in Washington last week and we went up on the Hill. Everyone involved on both sides of the aisle said CDBG is going to be there. The president seems to want to play games periodically with the budget. We will have our allotted funds.
I can actually speak to that already,
All right.
amazingly. I still don't quite understand how all that works, but Congress has already passed our budget for 2021. I've seen multiple times now we're budgeted for $611,000, which is about a $30,000 increase from last year, which tracks because I found an article that said the overall budget for CDBG was increased by about $100 million in December by Congress. So
That's already passed?
no, that's for this budget that I'm proposing ideas for. That's what we're looking at.
Okay.
And then
You're a heck of a lobbyist, Bob.
Pardon me?
You're a heck of a lobbyist.
Well, everybody knows that when you get the money at the local level, we know what to do with it to help people that are in need. If you give it
Yeah.
to somebody else and the state or federal government runs it, you don't know if it's going to get to the right spots.
Right.
And we know where our needs are, and that's why everybody seems to like it.
And in addition to the 611, I spoke with finance, and we're expecting about 46,000 from the Heritage Estates this year. And so we'll just program that in just like it's part of the
So
611.
are you looking for specific projects now or just concepts?
Either, I mean, I kind of just want people thinking over the next couple months on what they'd like to see, or if they have an idea that they'd like to, shoot past me to see if it's eligible, that's more than welcome as well. If they have, agencies that they think might benefit from our assistance, that's possible. This public services money is kind of tight, but, I'm sure we can find something.
Mr. Keys?
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. Thank you for the presentation. I thought it was good, and I'll definitely look forward to reviewing the PowerPoint because I'm curious about that map too. I guess one of my questions is if we have some clear districts on where this money should be spent, and you've already articulated that there are other areas that you can spend, whether it's a senior center or these opportunities where someone's a husband or wife had passed away, things like that. But what about going to those locations and hosting something similar like this? Where we were to actually go within their district instead of saying, come on out to the Civic Center for one day. Is there a way that we can maybe spread this conversation out and have a meeting with, I know Ms. West is on the Housing Commission.
Yeah.
There's a couple schools and a library at the south end of our township. I think we could probably host some type of town hall conversation where people could bring you these ideas, because I think that you'll be surprised that a lot of people will be excited about that type of opportunity to give some feedback on how these funds would be spent.
Yeah, I can set something up.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Aragona?
Yeah, thanks for being here. Great job on the presentation, especially with the technical difficulties. I did have a question. It sounded like you were kind of, there was a fair housing thing that you mentioned where we would need some type of audit, if I'm not mistaken, to be done. I was wondering if you could expound on that a little bit.
It's preventative. We didn't believe that we had a problem. Matt came to me and said he would like to try this. I thought it was a good idea, so that we're just assuring ourselves that everything is going along the way it should.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the fair housing testing.
Yeah.
That we set aside $8,000 for last year.
You're right.
The other thing I mentioned is a HUD requirement every few years, an analysis of impediments to fair housing.
Okay.
The fair housing testing obviously will help, us kind of establish kind of a base for that next step. We haven't had one done since, I believe, 2012. So like I said, we're due. And HUD last year said, you're going to be doing that, right? And I was like, yeah, I think so.
Is that a requirement they want it done every couple of years, but does it have to be done 5, 6, 7, 8, 9?
Once per consolidated, 5-year consolidated plan is a good
So we're due,
measure
like you said.
for when you can do it.
Okay. And you've been in the township for a while now. Do you foresee impediments that they're going to find, or do you foresee impediments that we need to worry about?
They might have some questions, about things we might be able to do to make affordable housing affordable, so that fair housing is an easier path. Just things like distribution of zoning, lot sizes, building requirements. It doesn't necessarily mean we have to change or that we're doing anything wrong, but those are the kind of things that I've seen come up in the past.
Okay.
Mr. Gillihan?
So, Matt, thank you for the verbal presentation. I look forward to getting the actual presentation. I was trying to write down the percentages, but the first one you mentioned I missed. It was the infrastructure. So it was 15 on the infrastructure?
About 400,000.
Okay, and 400,000, okay. And so just to clarify, these are federal dollars that come to local communities. If you're a small community, your dollars go to the county. If you're a large community, they come directly to you and you decide where, to place them. If you're a small community, you can make recommendations to the county and, get those dollars, make sure you meet the criteria, all of those things. There's a lot of requirements, a lot of sort of paperwork to ensure compliance, things of that nature. And that's kind of what, we're alluding to with some of the other conversations we're having here, right? Auditing these dollars to make sure. Okay, so you also mentioned the home rehab program. So in a sense, if I'm understanding correctly, the way that works is that if you're low, moderate income, you have some type of catastrophic event, health goes bad, income drops, those types of things, we can come and do some work on the home using these dollars. But then we place a lien on the property, so when the property sells, so, it basically comes out of the proceeds of the sale, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm assuming that's cyclical, that, houses are not always selling. There might be a down year or there might be an up year where 3 or 4 of them sell that we have liens on, and we recoup those dollars. But other years, we don't get much at all.
Correct.
Is that kind of what you're alluding to with needing to put money in this year?
Yeah,
Okay.
16 and 17, we had, for whatever reason, just a groundswell of liens coming in to the point where, we weren't sure how to spend all the money that was coming in. And, we kind of piggybacked on that. Like I said, when I got here last year, we had $170,000 of 2017 funds left over that we were still working on. We've been able to kind of bear down and get some projects out the door and work through that money. So that surplus isn't gone. And wouldn't you know it, the groundswell has dried up for the most part. We've only had a couple projects come back this year. So it is tough to guess, when you're going to get that program income and when you aren't, but
So it's mostly unpredictable.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Unless you have an inside track on that information somehow.
Okay. 18% administration with fair housing testing. So is 18% in the ballpark here? What's the limit?
20% is the limit.
20% is the limit, so we're underneath the limit.
Yeah.
Okay. But we are going to have to spend more because of the fair housing testing type of things that we're proposing this year.
This year, I don't know if we're going to set aside money for the fair housing testing because of the analysis of impediments to fair housing. That study will probably be, my understanding from talking to other communities in Macomb County, is that study will probably be in the $15,000 to $20,000 range.
Okay.
And that'll come out of our 20% admin budget. Luckily, we're getting more money, so we should be able to put comparable amount towards staff as this year and do the study.
Give me a sense as to what the 16% at the senior center is. Do you have any examples you can point to? And I don't want to
yeah.
put you on the spot, so if you know.
No, we
Okay.
just completed the senior center addition. The pickleball courts, I believe, were used CDBG.
Okay.
Removing barriers for the handicapped and the walking path.
Okay.
And maybe some bathrooms.
Okay.
Well, that's budgeted. We haven't done that yet.
Okay. And you already gave us an example, some of the improvements at Normandy Park is the 12% for the park
Yeah,
upgrades that are
that's a
occurring
pretty
there.
big chunk of that 12%.
Yep.
Because that's $225,000 that we're getting ready to spend at Normandy Park.
Okay. And so as you're issuing this public call from us, from the board members, from the public, you're looking for ideas. What are the needs? Identify them. How do we spend them? What should we be putting these dollars towards? Right? And the conversation really comes full circle because Habitat was just talking about with the homes program, the fact that, affordable housing is a tremendous problem throughout the country, not just here in Macomb County, but it's certainly here. As a caveat to that, what we're seeing is everyone's touting the fact that the unemployment rate is so low, but all the jobs that are being created are low-wage jobs. And so people are working 2 and 3 jobs in order to be able to sort of make ends meet. And so helping with things like daycare, that's a possibility as well. If it was-
Potentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That was just one of the things that I, sort of as I'm processing this and it's coming full circle and
Yeah.
the conversations are tying together, so.
That, I would have to do a little research. That might be a public service, so that would,
So run by a different group that then, handles that, but we would be able to donate and contribute to that.
yeah.
Okay.
Potentially. I mean, if it was like a low, moderate income family, we could assist with the costs of daycare, I believe.
Okay. All right.
Never done that, so don't quote me on that.
Nope, yeah.
So everyone understands what he's looking for?
Yep.
Mr. Kane? Just a quick, so for members of the community, how should they contact you? How should they, if they're not here sitting in this room but watching on TV?
Oh, in the timeline.
Yep.
He said over the next couple of months.
Okay.
Yeah, I have.
Call the planning department office.
Yeah. My name is Matt Wallace. My email address is m.wallace@clintontownship-mi.gov. My phone number is 586-723-8084. I can talk to you anytime.
Thank you.
And just so you know, I have to send this budget to the HUD May 15th, and that has to come after a 30-day public comment period. So I'll probably be making a draft budget available as close to April 15th as the board schedule allows. So the next really 2 months, I'll be, soliciting ideas, and sounds like maybe working in a few extra public meetings, off-site perhaps, so that we can, get a little more diversified input.
That'd be great.
Did you have a comment? You-
Oh, yeah.
There's a planning, anytime, you just call a planning department and ask for Matt. But go ahead and repeat it again.
M as in Matt, .Wallace, WALLACE, at Clinton Township, all spelled out, -mi.gov. And my phone number is 586-723-8084.
Thank you, Matt. The motion is in order to receive and file?
Support.
Mr. Cannon, before we do that, this is a public hearing, so we have to call for participation from the public.
Jump the gun.
Are there any members of the public who wish to communicate at this time? You have several months to get any information you wish to Mr. Wallace. To close the public hearing? Motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 7 is request to schedule a public hearing for the 2020-2021 budget. And I'm assuming the next board meeting?
Dear members of the board, this letter is a request to schedule a public hearing for the proposed 2020-21 budget. We are suggesting that the board hold this hearing on March 2nd, 2020. Once scheduled, we will assure the appropriate notice is published in the proper publication. The completed proposed budget document will be submitted to all board members prior to the meeting. Sincerely, Mary Hine, Assistant Finance Director.
Is there a motion to schedule it? Is there a second?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Aragona. Roll call, please, for March 2nd.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Item 8, 2019 passport recognition and report.
Dear board members, on December 10th, 2019, an acceptance facility oversight officer conducted an independent oversight inspection in our clerk's office where we offer additional service of processing passports. As stated by the Department of State, the purpose of the inspection is to focus on protecting the integrity of the passport issuance process. AFO evaluates acceptance facility capabilities to determine management controls for noncompliance with written guidance provided by Passport Services, mitigate the risk of fraud and mismalfeasance, identify and report systemic trends, and assess acceptance facilities' compliance to Department of State regulations. On January 16, 2020, we received a perfect score and this written commendation from the U.S. Department of State. We would like to congratulate you on your facility's commendable review on the AFO report for the audit conducted at your facility. As an acceptance facility, you play an essential role in helping American citizens obtain their passports, and we are proud to work with such a great team of people who help provide the public with quality service and information. On behalf of the United States Department of State, we thank you for your hard work and dedication to serving American citizens. It is with great pride that I share with you the above commendation, making it most appropriate for me to publicly acknowledge and thank my staff for their flawless work product and outstanding service. Senior Staff Secretary Colin Hansinski, he is in the audience, and if he wants to come up and say a few words. Also with him, Clerk 2 Maria Lucido, and my Deputy Clerk, who's also taking minutes, Kim Irvine. In addition, I wish to mention our thanks and appreciation to the Department of Public Services, which helped with the placement of cameras at the clerk's counter, adding additional security to the passport process, and to the Treasurer's Department that provides convenience and financial accountability during monetary exchanges. In 2019, our office processed passports and photographs, bringing in $111,530 in revenue for the township. The clerk's office will continue to offer passport processing with integrity and a commitment to serve. Sincerely, Kim Meltzer, Clinton Township Clerk.
Thank you.
And Mr. Cannon, if I can add, there is Kim is scrolling down right now, but both my Deputy Kim Irvine, Colin Hansinski, our Senior Staff Secretary, and our Clerk 2, Maria Lucido, do an impeccable job making sure that this is done not only for our community, but for the nation as a whole. And it really is a great service to this community. It is not a statutory responsibility, but it is one that we have taken on and executed very well. And if we could hear from them in terms of their responses that they receive from the public in regards to this service.
Yeah, so pretty much what we get from the public is that a lot of them think it's a wonderful service that we provide. Many of them are still kind of learning about the service, so and then they tell their friends and family. It's very popular even with folks that have renewal applications, which are self-executed. Those are sent in directly to the U.S. Department of State, but we still offer to do photos. So we've had a large increase in as well as for our photo acceptance as well as our applications that we have. And so an overwhelming response, as Ms. Meltzer had mentioned, from the community.
Well, I myself, back in 2016, when I was applying for a passport, did not know we processed passports, so I went all the way to Troy, which I wish I wouldn't have to go that far. But It is, I do get good responses from all the people that come in, saying how glad they are that we offer the service, and how convenient it is, and how quick and painless it is when they come in. And our photos are one of the cheaper ones, other than Costco and AAA. Our photo fees are a lot cheaper than drugstores. But overall, everyone's really happy with our service and our assistance when they do their passport.
Very good.
Good job. Good job.
I know they're lined up there all the time.
They are. And also, I would like to mention, too, we do have a graph. I don't know if that was included or not, but we serve a majority of our, it goes to Clinton Township in terms of our residents. Macomb Township is second highest. Sterling Heights is third in terms of the people that visit. But we have people from Detroit, Shelby Township, Fraser, Washington, St. Clair Shores, Warren, Mount Clemens, Harrison Township, and even other state and provinces outside of the state of Michigan that come and utilize our services. So, but overall, we increase, each year we seem to increase more and more. It was, as of today, we are not processing passports until after the election. It's just a busy time for us. And as I stated, it's not a statutory responsibility, so we have to put the elections as a priority. But we do have people coming in that really don't read maybe the federal website, because we post on the federal website as well as our own website. And they're always very urgently requesting that we still process their passports, but we take it on a case-by-case basis. But for this period of time, it's beneficial for us to refrain from processing them so that we can attend to the election process.
But we still are offering them at night by appointment only, first and third Thursday of each month.
Correct, yes, yes. And we offer that as a rule anyways. So the first and third Thursday of every month, we offer late-night passport processing, and that helps a lot of families as well.
And then if I could add one more thing. So October 1st is when the federal government is kicking in their requirement of real ID. We've had a lot of folks that have come in kind of confused about that. So if you want to board a flight, even a domestic flight, if you want to get into federal facilities like nuclear power plants, you have to have a real ID compliant piece of ID, which a passport or a passport card is. But a lot of licenses, especially from certain states, are not. Michigan right now, they have or had a dual system where depending on what documentation you brought in, they would either put a star on the ID or it would say not valid for federal identification. So starting October 1st, you need to have a real ID compliant piece of ID. So some people have been coming in that already have the star, or an enhanced license even without a star is still real ID compliant. Kind of trying to rush in to get a passport, but as long as it has the star or it's an enhanced license, passport card, passport book, that is a real ID compliant piece of ID, and you can get some of that information as well off the State Department website.
Thank you.
So motion to receive and file with all due accommodation. And congratulations to you and your staff that work, and it's nice to see the families showing up at the window, and everyone's excited because they're obviously planning a trip, right? So it's great to see, so.
Is there a second?
Keep up the good work.
Roll call.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Good job.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes. Thank you.
The next item is request for approval of a grant agreement between Clinton Township and Macomb County Action for Use of Home Funds for Housing Rehab.
The township is a member of the Macomb County Housing Consortium, which gives access to federal housing funds, home funds, awarded to Macomb County annually. The proposed agreement between Macomb County and the township would allow township staff to administer $256,195 in the 2019 home funds for the purpose of housing rehabilitation. To administer this program, the township would gain access to $27,645.18 to cover the cost of overseeing the home rehabilitations. The funds the township is gaining access to as part of this agreement must be committed for use by December 31st, 2020. However, each project completed as part of this program can spend up to $40,000 for repairs and improvements, plus whatever amount it needed to address any lead-based paint hazards on the property. It is therefore anticipated these funds will allow the township to complete 5 to 8 home rehabilitations for eligible owner-occupied residences. With approval of this agreement, staff will proceed with paperwork and processing for 2 projects eligible for home funding. Staff is therefore confident with 2 projects ready to go and current demand for housing rehab projects from eligible homeowners, it can make full use of these funds in the time allotted. Access to these funds granted by approving this agreement will provide a valuable supplement to the township's existing housing rehabilitation program. This is from Matt Wallace, Assistant Director of Planning.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. There's several important things here. We belong to the consortium, which is important. And also, we're going to get a substantial amount of money that will go towards somewhere between 5 and 8 homes in our community that should just make a world of difference. So thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 11, approval to hire 2 police officers.
Dear board members, I'm requesting board approval to hire 2 police officers. Detective Ken Richardson and Sergeant David Wheeler have both submitted their retirement request. The candidates are Anthony Griffith and Jonathan Morden. Both are currently Macomb County Sheriff deputies. The swearing-in is scheduled for Thursday, February 27th, 2020, at 10 a.m. at the Police Department. These are budgeted positions. Thank you for your continued support. Sincerely, Fred Posifis, Chief of Police.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Keys. Roll call, please.
Just quickly. On this letter, there's not a starting salary or a cost on there. Usually we have that. I don't know if it's because it usually comes from civil service and this one's coming straight from the chief maybe. I could always send an email to follow up. I'm sure you don't have the cost right at the top of your head, but is that one of the reasons we don't see the cost in the letter?
It's in the contract.
Yeah, to get the contracts is kind of tedious. Usually we put it in the letter what the person's starting salary would be.
I actually didn't think we did it with cops and firefighters. I thought it was everybody else.
It is everybody else, and that's kind of where I'm trying to figure out the
Oh,
difference.
that's your question?
Yeah, that's my question, is do we not do that with police and fire for a specific reason?
Chief, do you know? I don't know. We just never have.
Okay, I can follow up with an email so I can get the number. Maybe we could do that in the future. Just, I think we include that in all the civil service recommendations and things that come before the board. Just so the public doesn't have to FOIA the contract to figure out, what costs would be.
It is on the website. Our
In the HR department?
Oh, yeah, and it's on the website. Yep.
That makes sense, too. But again, in the letter, I think is the easiest way.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 12, introduction of the Construction Board of Appeals fee schedule.
Dear board members, the building department requests consideration and approval for a fee addition. The fees would be collected as part of an application process for the Construction Board of Appeals. The building code requires an appeals process for code-related denials, and the fees are similar to what other communities are charging for this code-required service. As part of the fee change, I would like to pay the Construction Board of Appeals members at a similar rate to the Zoning Board or Planning Commission, which would be $50 per meeting. Your consideration and approval of this request would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Barry Miller, Building Department Superintendent.
This committee doesn't meet very often.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Yes, Robert Campbell, 41830 Kentvale Drive. I'd like to make a point that we now have 3 boards where there's a minimal or nominal stipend for each meeting. This one, the Zoning Board of Appeals, which I'm on, and the Planning Commission. And I see no reason why they can't be identical in terms of the stipend that's offered. Here we have like a 3rd board that has the 3rd different schedule set up. I sent an email to Mr. Miller, and his basic reaction was, well, if you want to comment at the Township Board, fine. We've set it up to be similar. Well, it's similar, yes, but it's not identical. I think it'd be appropriate where it's really a nominal kind of stipend we offer. And I'm not looking for a pay increase here at all. Why can't we just make them all the same and have the same structure for whether we pay officers any additional amount and what the pay is per meeting? Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that no one remembers the last time this board met. But just in case they wanted to have some type of a figure in there. This board just doesn't meet very often. And the number he came up with is predicated upon what I think the workload would be. It's different.
And it's-
You're out on the road with multiple issues every time you meet. This would probably be one item, one time, if that.
And we're getting paid less.
Oh, you're getting paid less?
Yes.
I don't even know how much you're getting paid.
45.
Make it the same.
45, is it?
45. I didn't know.
45, the zoning board of appeals has been paid $45 a meeting ever since I started in 1994, 26 years ago. And the planning commission, as I understand it, is also paid $45 a meeting.
50.
Yeah, 50, okay. I was told it was 45 and 50 for officers, but apparently it's been changed to 50. Now, why ZBA and planning should be different, I don't know. It doesn't make sense. And now, I would just comment, Macomb Township is paying the same positions of ZBA and planning about $130, $140 a meeting. I'm not looking for that. I think we get a much more constructive, meaningful discussions and people committed to doing the job with the nominal level of pay. We don't, as I say, I'm not looking for a big pay increase, just consistency.
Well, what I can tell you is I know how hard you work at that, and I know how much you've committed yourself to it for a long time, so I thank you for it. You are a great volunteer in the community.
Thank you.
Did we have a motion on the floor?
Mr. Kane, just a quick question. I apologize because I did step out. I want to make sure this question was asked. When I look at the backup, I have the highlighted new fees, but I don't see where they were previously. Does anybody know how much the increase is?
I can answer that even though, because I was at Budget Ways and Means, there was no fee. They didn't get paid a fee.
No, I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm talking about the document says Construction Board of Appeals fees, single-family residential, multifamily residential, each additional item on same application.
What I would suggest is, this is an introduction.
Okay.
So reach
Yep.
out to Barry, and he can let you know so that I don't misquote it.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't believe there were any fees either.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the introduction. So we have a motion to approve the introduction and a support. Roll call, please.
Sam Bushel, 18546 Wayland Drive. I'm looking at that construction fee schedule there. And kind of typical for Clinton Township, I see a fee for single-family homes, multifamily, and each additional item on the same application have different fees. There's not one darn thing for commercial properties. That's pretty typical for Clinton Township.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragonis?
Yes.
Mr. Gillaham?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. And item 13, invitation to bid request for Bayham Court, Cobham Court, and Kentville Crossings Water Main.
Dear Township Board members, on Tuesday, February 4th, 2020, the Budget Ways and Means Committee met with Mary Bednar, PE-CFM, on the Township's DPS, and Scott Chabot, PE of AEW, to discuss the water main replacement scope of the Bayham Court, Cobham Court, Kentville Drive, and Alliston Drive paving SAD area. In addition to the scope, the committee discussed timing and a variance to the purchasing policy. During the discussion, they explained the water mains they are recommending are classified in the moderate risk category per our asset management study. Additionally, the open-cut construction method being recommended could impact the roads which are proposed to be replaced this construction season. The estimated cost for this water main replacement work is approximately $365,000 and has been budgeted. They also explained that the water mains on Alliston and Kentville are classified in the lowest risk factor of the asset management plan, and the expected means of construction will have minimal impact on the roads in the future. Thus, it was recommended by Ms. Bednar and Mr. Chabot to only replace the water mains on Bayham Court, Cobham Court, and the water main crossings on Kentville's Drive at Picton Court and Alliston Drive. Due to limited timing, They recommended a solicitation of bids from existing township utility contractors to ensure this water main replacement project is installed prior to the road SID project commencing. This requires a variance to the township purchasing policy provision of publicly bidding projects over $10,000 to be waived. The committee unanimously voted to recommend waiving the aforementioned purchasing policy provision and to provide the invitation to bid for this project as requested. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Sincerely, Robert Cannon, Acting Chairperson for the Budget, Ways and Means Committee.
Comments or questions? Mr. Keys?
Okay, so Ms. Bednar, you and I have looked at a couple of these maps for different locations, and I remember even recently looking at one where Mr. Chabot had said, oh, well, maybe this one. And he said, well, that's not orange just yet. I have other priorities to focus on. Explain to me why this is the priority that we have to be focused on right now.
So what we have is what's called the Water Asset Management Plan. And what that plan does is looks at lots of items. For example, the age of the water main, the type of the water main, how many water main breaks we have on it, how many people are served on it. Is it a transmission line? So maybe you don't have a lot of taps on it, but it's one going down a major mile road that services 15 neighborhoods, or is it something that feeds a dead end? And based on what it does and how much redundancy, it has a scoring system. So we look at the scoring system, and basically, you talk about the colors.
Right.
So red kind of implies bad, and green kind of implies good, and then everything's in between. If you look at our PASER study for our roads, it's the same color scheme type idea. So we look at saying, okay, we need to address our red first. We need to address, and look at the different colors. Now, we can't necessarily address every red project in 1 year, but we can look at it and we can schedule it based on where it's located, how many people are going to be impacted. Oh, wait a minute, we know something's happening at the hospital this year, so we need to do something next year. We look at all of those things. So based on the map that's up, that Kim Irvine just put up on the screen, you can see that the lines along Kentvale and along Alliston are green, which means they're very good. They're in good condition. Actually, if you look further down, you can see that little loop at the very bottom of the screen. That's Picton Court. That was not green 2 years ago, but we replaced it when they did the Picton Court paving SAD. So now it's green. So what we're looking to do is replace Cobham Court, which is the top yellow, which means it's not green, but it's not red yet. But based on the age of the road that we're proposing to put in, based on the type of construction and the impact it could have on the road, we're recommending that we move forward with that. If you scroll down a little bit further, Kim, you'll see that bottom one that's yellow is Bayham Court. And based on the type of construction and the road timing and so forth, we're recommending that. And then we are also recommending all of the crossings across Kentvale. So that way we do not have to go back in when we go to do Kentvale in the future. And in fact, if you look at Picton Court, you can see there's two what we call gate valves, the white circles with the X's. Between there's a yellow section.
Yeah.
We're going to take care of that yellow section because that's what goes underneath Kentvale. And because we weren't doing Kentvale at the time, we didn't want to go under Kentvale. So we're looking at how do you coordinate this so that we get the biggest bang for our buck. We address what we need to address. If we weren't doing a road project in these areas, I probably wouldn't be looking at them. But because we are, I don't want to have a new road go into place and then 10 years from now go, oh, and now we're going to do your water main. Sorry that we're digging up your road. We have to look at these things. The reason we're not doing Kentvale is because we can do a different type of construction. In fact, the preferred method is a different type of construction because of all the different conflicts, because that's a transmission line. So there's a large storm sewer, there's other utilities that we have to work around. So we would look at doing a different type of construction. That was a long-winded answer.
Yeah, no, it was really good, though. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Further comments?
We got
Seeing none, the floor is open for a motion.
future.
Move to approve?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Mrs. West.
Yes.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 14, bid award, water storage tank improvements.
On January 30th, 2020, the Charter Township of Clinton Clerk's Office received and processed a total of 2 bids for the above referenced project. Our office checked the tabulation of the bids submitted, and the low bidder is Seven Brothers Painting, Inc. of Shelby Township in Michigan, in the bid total amount of $103,400. A copy of the final bid tabulations are attached with this letter. The project consists of interior and exterior low-pressure cleaning of the water storage reservoir, exterior painting of the water reservoir, cleaning and painting of the exterior overflow pipe, exterior spout repairs, replacement of roof vent screens, and as-needed caulking of the storage tank roof. This project is budgeted in fiscal year 2021. Work will commence after April 1st, 2020. Anderson, Eckstein, and Westrick review the contractor qualifications for this project with the Director of Public Services and Township personnel. We determine the low bidder is qualified to perform this work based on past performance and positive feedback from other similar public projects. The bidder submitted the bid form with the total amounts for each pay item. AEW corrected the bid tabulation to include the unit prices that were not filled in. All of the bid items, except for the caulk replacement item, were lump sum items. The bidder has also agreed to the calculated $5 per foot cost on the caulk replacement bid item. This did not affect the computation of the total bid value. This informality was reviewed with the Township Attorney and Public Services Director. A waiver on this informality will require Township Board approval as part of this bid award. Based upon the bid submitted, conditions noted above, the waiving of the bid form informality, we recommend that the water storage tank improvements be awarded to Seven Brothers Painting, Inc., located at 50805 Rizzo Drive, Shelby Township, Michigan, 48315, in the amount of $103,400. Sincerely, Scott Chabot, Senior Project Engineer.
Comments or questions? Floor
So
is
moved
open
to
for a
approve?
motion.
So moved to approve.
Second?
So we're approving at the
400.
bid level of
140, 507.
140,507.20?
No.
No, 103,
103.
$103,400.
Remember, what you're looking at, Paul, is the overall project because we have to pay for soft engineering.
Okay.
What you're approving is the contractor of Seven Brothers Painting, Inc. for the amount of $103,400.
Got it. Okay.
And just so you know, we know that the board had not approved the fiscal year 2021 budget yet. This was actually budgeted as part of 2020, but we moved it to 2021 because of the timing. So we are not trying to go ahead of you in your approval of the budget.
Okay, I don't know who seconded it. I mean, somebody came up.
I thought
Whatever.
Ms. West had made a motion, you had supported, I'm sorry.
I thought so, but the other people didn't, so I didn't know who you were
It was
awarding it to.
Mrs. West and yourself.
Okay. Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 15, rejection of bids, the generator for the DPW garage.
Dear members of the board, on September 20th, 2019, the Department of Public Works accepted bids for a natural gas generator backup system for our maintenance garage. Upon reevaluation of the specifications, we have determined that it is in the township's best interest to reject all bids received. Anderson, Eckstein, and Westrick, Inc. is currently making adjustments to the generator specifications, and upon completion, we plan to again advertise our request for bids. Sincerely, Mary Bednar, Director, Department of Public Services.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 17, Heritage Estates change order number 2.
Dear members of the board, on February 4th, 2020, the Heritage Estates Committee met to discuss extending the current contract of the Meridian Contracting Group in order to complete the recladding of decks and the replacement of exterior doors on the second half of Building D. Attached, you will find a letter of understanding indicating the contractor will hold his per unit price that was billed for the first half of Building D in 2019. Wakely Associates has prepared the necessary change order on our behalf, along with his administration and engineering contract. Both contracts have been reviewed by Mr. Dolan, and the contract amounts are budgeted. Both the Township DPW and Heritage Estates tenants have been very pleased with the quality of the workmanship and the cooperation of Meridian Contracting Group personnel to date. The committee voted unanimously to accept Heritage Estates deck recladding project change order number 2 for the replacement of exterior doors and the recladding of decks on the second half of Building D. I'm requesting board approval of the Meridian change order number 2 in the amount of $210,800 and the Wakely architectural and engineering contract in the amount of $3,805.20. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Sincerely, Kenneth Pearl, Chairman for the Heritage Estates Committee.
Thank you. This is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, just one question I have, Mr. Dolan. I know you reviewed this, but Mr. Keys asked, do we need to waive competitive bidding? But I think we're just doing an extension of the contract.
Yes, this was basically a unit-based contract, so all we're doing is continuing the contract at the original unit pricing. Correct, Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. And item 19 is recommendation from the Election Commission.
Dear board members, the Election Commission requests approval to create a lead election temp position to assist the elections coordinator at $20 per hour. Temporary election workers are presently paid at an hourly rate of $15 per hour. Also, for 20 student temps, we request $12 per hour, up from $10 per hour, which is 2 years ago. Note that not all students will be requesting pay. Some will work for service hours. No budget amendment is required to meet this request, and thank you for your attention to this request. Sincerely, Kim Meltzer, Clerk.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
No.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Item 20, request approval to pay SEMCOG annual membership dues.
Dear Clerk Meltzer, thanks for participating with over 170 SEMCOG members to create a successful region. Your SEMCOG membership represents working together to create strong communities and a stronger region. We thank you for your financial support, and we thank you for partnering with us. SEMCOG works with its members to develop and implement regional policies and plans on key issues impacting you. An important aspect of implementing regional plans is educating residents of Southeast Michigan about the small actions we can all take to make a difference. We encourage you to take action by participating in our meetings, workshops, and by sharing our public education messages. For additional information or on making your SEMCOG membership work for you, visit semcog.org/member-services or contact Amy Malmer by email at malmer@semcog.org. It is an honor to serve your organization. Please let us know if we can better serve you. Best regards, Kathleen Lomako. She is the executive director. Mr. Cannon, you've been on this board as well for many, many years. How many so far?
19.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. And you get to do things similar to what you just said you did in Washington, D.C., correct?
Yes.
So that's a voice that we need at that level.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve if.
Is there a second? Thank you. Roll call, please.
Was it? Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 21, request for proposal for legal and audit services.
Dear board members, the township has been proactive in assuring that our service contracts are competitive. Not too long ago, we bid our engineering services and our towing contract. We also reviewed our refuse contract and rates, as well as our contract with MedStar. Requests for proposals and competitive bidding are the way that we ensure the public that we are receiving the best services at the best rates. Requests for proposals can provide the public with at least some assurance that the township has a rigorous process for awarding contracts and procuring services. Therefore, I am recommending that we issue a request for proposal for the legal services at this time. Legal services have not been reviewed for at least 60 years. Further, that at the conclusion of our 2019-20 audit, we issue an RFP for audit services. I recommend we wait on the audit RFP because our year end will be upon us in the next 6 weeks, and the audit process will begin. I do not feel it is appropriate to be issuing an RFP for audit services while we are undergoing our annual audit. Sincerely, Robert Cannon, Supervisor.
Thank you, and I would like to send this to the Budget Ways and Means Committee, which has all the people that work closely with our attorneys, except for Bill Smith, so we would include Bill Smith on those dates when we discuss this item.
So moved.
Is there, okay, that's your motion?
And I'll second it, but
Okay.
questions. So if I could, Mr. Cannon, I did send out a email to you, and I CC'd the rest of the board to say, are we talking about the general services, or are we talking about some of the ancillary services? So there's, it's broken down with different firms. There's HR services performed by, I think, Towner and Towner Law. There are the prosecution and ordinance violations by, I think, Towner, and then the Dolan Tomlinson firm provides other services in addition to the general, like the assessing is done by Mr. Tomlinson, and the bankruptcy is kind of built separately as well.
And then
So, and that's, and that's Tim.
The insurance.
Peacock.
Oh, and then, right, and then insurance work as well. So is it your intention to bid out all of those, or some of them, or what?
All of those, but the insurance
Okay.
attorney is picked by the insurance company.
No, they work for us.
Yeah, they work for us, actually, yeah.
They're,
By law, they have to work for
they
us.
are assigned,
He has a separate firm.
Yeah, I think the
I-
insurance company
he
has to
used-
sort of sign off and say yes or no.
I have no
or-
problem.
Unless the
Okay.
insurance company is the attorneys work directly for the insurance company. But in this case,
they don't.
they don't.
Okay, that's
So I
fine.
think-
No, my intention is for all.
Okay, all right. And then audit, so we do the budget, then we're doing the audit, then your intention is to then take the audit services out after that.
That's
So
correct.
for the next budget season, we may, well, we'll have a new auditor in place basically before that next round occurs, but not for this time.
Well, maybe the same auditor.
Could be same.
Oh, indeed, yes, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Further comments or questions?
Yeah, I got a quick one. I saw your email, Paul. Was there a reason why you thought it was only one or the other for legal services? When I saw it, I just assumed it was all of them.
Yeah, well, because
Confirm
it hasn't been bid out in 60 years, and then just recently, there was a major disagreement, so I just wondered, I wanted to make sure we were talking about all of them versus just some of them.
Yeah, personally, I support all of them. I mean, I think it's good to, if you're not going out for an RFP, at very least do some type of market study for the communities around you for any services, whether it's legal, any services we have in the township. So I support this.
I was out of town most of last week.
Okay, oh, okay.
Mrs. Meltzer, roll
We
call.
last
please.
week, remember? Come on.
No, right.
Just quickly. Thank you very much. Lost my train of thought there, but I'll get it back. The one thing that concerned me with the letter was the 60 years comment. I was a little shocked by that, and I hope that there's not any other contracts out there that we're just letting sit for 20, 60 years. We have to have a competitive bid process. That's why actually I voted against the MedStar project, because although you admit we did review it with the ambulance committee, there wasn't that market study that showed us a graph of the different costs and breakdowns that I felt was enough to be a comparative analysis. And so I absolutely support, I'm confused why we're sending it to Budget Ways and Means if we couldn't just
Right.
immediately task an employee with going out to bid or getting an RFP drafted for all legal services in the township. Is that something that we could do?
Well, we can do that through the Ways and Means Committee. I want Mr. Smith to be
Okay.
very involved with this.
Okay. And, I know that this board in the past, and I'll look back in our minutes to figure out exactly where the communication was lacking, but this board at one point passed a resolution saying that, or a directive, I think it was, maybe we need to look at a resolution, that the board members be provided a list of all the contracts we have, when the last time they were bid out, and the expiration date. And without that, I don't know how we can do our jobs. Mr. Cannon, you've been on this board a lot longer than I have, so your memory can go back 60 years. I can't go and say that.
Wow, Mike, come on now. That's just
I didn't mean it. No, I didn't.
That's just mean.
No, I just mean that you have the resources here at the township to be able to do that. As trustees, we don't have that. And so we need that list to be able to hold our contractors accountable.
There's a resources comment.
Yeah, so the 60-year thing really shocked me, and I hope that there's no other contracts, and I'll do my due diligence to try to figure out where the communication dropped on getting that list to the trustees, so that way I can ensure that I'm doing my job and not letting a contract sit for 60 years without a competitive bid. That's nonsense. So, thank you.
If I can. Mike, just to respond to a couple of the quick things you said. So first of all, in my opinion, it should be going to Budget Ways and Means just because a legal contract can be somewhat complicated. There's certain lawyers within certain types of law that probably shouldn't be responding, right? We wouldn't want an ambulance chaser responding. Now, I know that's a kind of a bit of a stretch, but we don't want somebody to just write an RFP and then that's it. I would feel more comfortable having a discussion amongst Budget Ways and Means for that contract to go out. The other thing you mentioned was a document regarding multiple contracts, when they've been bid out, that type of thing. Just moving forward, I guess as a statement to the rest of the board, I'd also like there to be data in there when it was reviewed. So if we don't go out for RFP for a large number of years, I feel that's okay, as long as it's been reviewed at some point in the past. So I think that also needs to be in there. If you spearhead that, if somebody else spearheads that, I would just personally like to see that in there. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. I mean, before we add things, I just want to get the original list. That's my goal. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was. The purchasing policy was amended, so it's there. The language is there. So.
We're just not following it.
Roll call.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 22 is the FOIA request.
And I can speak to that, Mr. Cannon. I can speak to that if you'd like.
Sure.
Thank you. And I can speak on it from my behalf. At the last meeting, there was a conversation, and I followed up with an email on February 7th requesting that the petitions involved in the recent marijuana ballot initiative be sent out to board members. It was my understanding that that was going to take place. I saw that Mrs. West had followed up with an email asking that that be done. And without that having been accomplished and without being able to receive that, I thought it was important to put a resolution on this agenda to require that the clerk send that over to myself. And I know that other requests, including I won't speak for other people, but I know other requests have been made, and I'll let other trustees speak to that.
I originally requested the information on the 4th of, I believe, December. And then a subsequent conversation to say, look, we're a township board. These are now documents of the township, and review of them shouldn't require FOIA. That is not the way we should interact as departments. And as a result of that, I spoke with Mr. Cannon, the supervisor. He agreed, and we did have some conversations. It was my understanding that I thought those documents were coming our way. As of yet, they have not. So I support adoption of this resolution.
If I may.
Mrs. Meltzer?
Okay, so at that time, your first request in December was a FOIA, and I started to produce it as one only after I made the, let you know, the costs associated with that FOIA request, which would have been about $1,600 to process that request. Did you say, wait a minute, why, I'm not going to FOIA it, I'm in the treasurer, and I should be able to have access to it. And you can look at it, but anytime. But the thing is putting all of, photocopying all of that and getting it already is a timely endeavor. It is a costly endeavor to the township as well, because we have to pay staff to do that. So what you're kind of asking is you're saying you want to circumvent that process so that, because, you're putting yourself in my position, or in my opinion, that you're saying you get to circumvent the process when the average public doesn't get to. So I think that there's an issue there. However, again, if there wasn't so much labor intensiveness involved, I can see your point, but the fact that it is so very labor intensive to process this, and now with the election, not far off. I've just looked at this resolution. You want it February 24th. The election is March 10th. You're asking me, we've already cut out passport processing. You're asking me to have my staff cut out processing ballots, which under a new constitutional law that was put in place in 2018, we have to turn around ballot requests within 24 hours. And this, for something that you still have, and I've asked you guys, why do you want this so badly? What is so important about this list? And you go, because I want to do a study. Okay, fine. Can you do the study after March 10th? Is there a reason it has to be before an election that is causing my staff to have to drop, their statutory duties to give you guys something that you may or may, you're not willing to FOIA it. You're not willing to tell us why you want the information or why you need it so quickly, and for what purpose. I guess I'm just stunned that you think you need a resolution when I'm happy to comply with your requests after the March 10th election, if that would be okay. I think it's a reasonable request. It's not, you're saying before February 24th. Would you be willing to make it, March 16th?
Would you like me to respond to those points?
Yeah, if you want to.
Okay.
I don't necessarily need you to.
Mr.
but
Gilliam?
Other than the
So,
one
You can respond.
to delay.
Original request was back in December. So the time element to this and so close to the election is rendered mute based upon that.
Not true at all.
The FOIA that was given to me simply for the petitions was like $160 something, wasn't $1,600. And then the labor-intensive nature of this, there was discussion that these documents would be scanned. We have a Laserfiche program that has been implemented, and all these documents are not supposed to be physical hard copies anymore. They're supposed to be electronic documents that would be easy to sort of send out electronically. And we've had those discussions on that. We've had multiple discussions on this. And the fact is, we haven't gotten them. The fact is, in terms of circumventing the public, I work for the public. I represent their interest, and I'm looking for the fact that these were done. This petition was sent on to the clerk's office. It was announced publicly that they were validated and confirmed, but as of yet, no one's been able to validate that. No one has been able to get that information, and you're telling us that we would have to pay in order to validate it. That is not the way that the township should work, and as an official, I'm requesting that to be able to validate them. And the fact that it's taken so long gives me more room and reason for wanting to be able to review them.
I have a question. Does clerk, this is of you, Mrs. Mauser, does Clerk Fred Miller have the same documents that you have that he's asking?
No, the documents aren't actually transferred. We verify and then send over a verification, and we, explain the process, delineating what we looked at, what was excluded, what was, included. And then, because there was almost 6,000 signatures submitted, but just almost 4,000 were verified. So, and that is my statutory responsibility. Nobody does that. Nobody gets to do that but me.
I understand.
Does that answer your question, or is there a follow-up?
Well, my reason for asking is if he had the same signatures, the same paperwork, but he doesn't.
He does not.
Then he cannot make that request of him.
No.
Is it possible, or is it just not right for maybe someone on his staff to make the copies that he's requesting? Because I see how busy you are in your office right now, and I would not, right now, we do a lot of important things in this community as board members and as staff, but none at this point in time is more important than the election.
Right. So there's a retention schedule associated with that, and I'm responsible for those documents. So no, I wouldn't want to give them to somebody else to manage and try to photocopy and all of that. It would have to be somebody from my staff to do it, which in normal circumstances isn't an issue. It wouldn't be any different than a FOIA request. But Mr. Gilliam is not quite, accurate in his statement. You said December 4th, but then when I did first respond to you, you weren't clear in your FOIA request how you wanted that format, so I gave it to you in the way that you had asked for it, which was, you actually did ask for paper. So that's where the $1,600 fee came in. Previous to that, we did get a FOIA request for this by the attorney that was representing Clinton Township first, and then he retracted that request once he found out the cost of it, or not, I don't know if it was as a result of that, but once he found out the cost of it, he did retract that request. So there was that, go back and forth a little bit between, well, is this a FOIA request or is this not? And then the holidays came, and then January came, and then the lawsuit was, kept me very busy, and everything, all of the other things that were going on. So it wasn't because you weren't willing to pay for it or put it in a FOIA request. It just didn't seem like it was as big of a priority. And with everything that had resolved from, all the preparation necessary, and I don't expect you guys to understand it, but there's a ton of preparation and timeliness associated with elections, and now we're really in the heart of it, and I'm, like I said, more than happy to finish the project. We aren't done with it yet, but we can finish it, and I'd like to say if we could get it to you by March 16th, that gives us, because even after the election, there is a ton of work that has to be done. There's auditing, there's all of the preparation. So if it was March 16th, then we'd be in a better position to have my staff take over and,
Okay, I
finish
still have several
the
more
project.
questions.
Sure.
Did you say that you are not finished with that paperwork that was submitted to you?
Right.
Is it possible you could hire another person and take one of your current staff and have them do the work that's being requested, and then have that person's temporary salary taken out of the treasurer's budget? Or is that something that you could not do?
It's never been done before. I mean, not that it couldn't be done, I suppose. It seems
I mean, I'd like
kind
to
of.
have him have the names.
I'd
really
be
would.
willing to pay the
I'm-
160.
I have the floor. I want you to get them, but I am not ready to jeopardize her efforts at the election. When we had another clerk prior to her, I found out how difficult running elections are. Mr. Dolan and I and many others had to get more involved in that process than we really wanted to. And I'm glad I'm not in that job, quite frankly. That's a very difficult job, especially at election time, and a very serious job. So I want you to have the names. I don't know why you want them, and I really don't care why you want them. But you, if you want them, deserve to have them. Yet she deserves to have her staff doing the work that they're being paid to do now, and that's elections. So how do we get the two together? You have the floor.
I didn't request the floor.
Okay.
Mr. Cannon?
Mr. Pearl?
I'm hearing both sides of it, but this is a basic principle that a board member is elected to do a job, and they should be given reasonable latitude to get information, whether I ask from the treasurer's office or clerk's office or whatever. So I don't think we've ever denied the clerk help, other than the Laserfish study that we did. But in the election, you've been given full reign to bring in who you need. And if you have to pay some overtime, it shouldn't be charged to a department. He's a public official, as we all are. That should be part of if the budget goes over, we approve the budget to go over, that's all. But it's part of her budget, and it's just a principle that he's waited long enough for it. I don't want it, but he wants it, and he should have a right to have it. And whatever it takes, how many pages are we talking about?
It's got to be 500.
Is there 6,000?
Wait, can I ask a question? Is it just the signatures you want, or do you want every single page that was submitted?
The petitions.
The petitions.
How could you do the signatures and not the petitions?
Petitions, but is
Well,
there,
aren't
is
they
there
all-
5,000,
I think
6,000
y'all are
pages?
confusing technology here. We're talking about scanning some documents. This is not that complicated. I'm sorry, yeah, I just.
Let me
Well,
just-
I know, but you don't know what it looks, they
Let me
all
just
are
finish.
stapled, they
Hold on.
have to be
You-
unstapled and
Please,
restapled.
please be acknowledged, otherwise we won't get through.
It's 6,000 signatures, correct? And you, 6,000 pages. How many signatures per page?
I didn't realize it was that many.
But I thought you said you only looked at 4,000 signatures.
No, we looked at 6,000, we verified 4,000.
Okay, but there's how many, 15 per page?
No, that doesn't necessarily, as you know, as a, can I respond?
No, it could be,
Yes.
Can I
okay, it could
respond?
be a number, it could be a couple on a
Some
page.
of, yeah, there's 2, or there's 1, or, yeah, there's
But
not that many.
I
Plus,
know
like-
that you've told us the last 4 years that you've done millions of pages of scanning. So a few thousand pages is not going to be that much work. You could bring somebody in overtime and just do it. And if we have to adjust your budget, we'll adjust the budget. It's been long enough.
For,
Mrs.
That's
Meltzer?
mine.
Okay, for clarification, generally when we board members want information, it's already produced, it's already in a format that is easily transferable. This wasn't. This was a hard copy that I have to retain because the government, the law tells me I have to. So it's very labor intensive, this particular request. So that's kind of what differentiates it from any other request. So that's why I'm saying, it wasn't as high of a priority. When I asked, what do you guys need the information for? Is there another way I could help you with it? I still haven't gotten an answer. I mean, why do you want these
You know
signatures
what?
of the people?
They don't have to answer.
No, well, the thing is, in a FOIA request, you don't. But in this case, it's not a FOIA. So I just didn't know the urgency of needing this, especially when there was a lawsuit going on and all the other things. So, like I said, I'm asking, can it be delayed till March 16th, or you guys want us to hire somebody else to do this?
Mr. Keys?
I find this conversation very disingenuous. We've had multiple conversations in closed session that our attorney has advised me that I can't be very clear on what was said. But this conversation is very disingenuous. The idea that it hasn't been made clear that we wanted these documents is just simply not true. I will also point out that at the beginning of this conversation, you said we would make them available. You can come see them anytime. So if we can come see them and take the staples out ourselves and scan them, but then it was, no, you can't do that.
Right.
So you're really not giving us an opportunity. I guess that is the question. Why not? Why couldn't I come into the office, take a vacation day at work, come into your office, take all the staples off of these pieces of paper and run them through a township scanner into our Laser Feast program, which we pay a lot of money for?
Mrs.
Can I answer
Meltzer?
that? Because you're in my office, we're doing different various things, we're needing the copier, so we might need you to go someplace else. In fact, when there was a actually a nationwide FOIA request, I had to take all the ballots that had to be scanned, and I had to send it over to, I had to go over to the Parks and Recs Department, because they were the only ones that had the ability for me to use it, and I had to go in on a Saturday or Sunday, because it's so labor intensive to make, these copies. I would be asking other community, within the community here in the township, in other words, other departments, to hold off on doing their jobs so that I could photocopy to answer this FOIA request. It's the same thing. If you come into my office and have to, remove staples and use our copying machine, we may be needing that in the course of doing business. And it would be better for you to do it at a time that was off, later in the day,
Like
or
December.
on a Saturday or a Sunday, except that I'm responsible for those documents. So again, it's a total different comparison than what you're talking about, Mr. Pearl. You're saying that it's no different than any other request. It is a different request, because these are documents I am responsible for retaining. And if I just give them away and say, okay, go ahead, do with what you want, then I may or may not, I'm not in control of that. And that is my job. So I look at it that way. And I think it's very disingenuous to mention closed session when you know nobody can talk about it. So here you're mentioning being disingenuous when, we can't really talk about what happened. So I'm asking for March 16th or, thereafter, whatever, to finish the copying, to get this to you guys. And if,
Mr. Kennedy,
as opposed to hiring somebody that I don't know, that I have to still sit down and explain how to process, what to do. I believe these are on 11 by, is on legal documents. Is it on legal? Okay.
Mr. Kennedy, I think I still have the floor, if that's okay.
Mr. Keys?
Yeah, just in the last note I want to make is Mr. Gilliam had mentioned a amount in the $100 or $200. You, though, had mentioned something in the $1,000 range. I would really be interested in what the cost was. You said there was someone who had previously FOIA'd this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would be interested in what you were charging that person versus what you were going to charge Mr. Gilliam, because it seems to be a discrepancy there. And I'd like to get to the bottom of why that is, but I don't need an answer tonight.
I'd be happy to send him the email,
Yep,
just to answer him.
And so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve this resolution.
Support.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we as citizens, we have 7 board members up here that we're paying the salary of to do our business. And we've got 1 board member that does not want to, from December 4th, on something as important as this election, marijuana election, has held up documents from the other board members that are representing us and protecting us, and has not given that information out. And it makes it even worse when that particular person was very much for the pro-marijuana people that were passing in the election, in these petitions. I think that makes it so outrageous.
Mr. Cannon, to that point, he's...
Do you interrupt your citizens?
Excuse me.
But you're making a
She's
very false
correcting.
claim. I've never came out for or against. You're
I
wrong.
was going by your vote.
No.
3
Vote was for my
Mrs. Meltzer?
ordinance.
Mrs. Meltzer, let him finish, then you can correct him. He's way off base, but let him finish.
I was going by the night of the very large meeting here with the pro-marijuana people, and the 3 people did vote for them, and it's a matter of, so I was just going that way. Have you been pro-marijuana? I'm not, I'm just saying, there again, there was pictures circulating online of some board members even at the bar after the meeting with, with the pro-marijuana people. So we have to, as a citizen, we have to consider that. And I just consider your vote, and anybody can go back to the meeting, look at the minutes, and realize you voted for it. So that, but I just think it's outrageous that we have people representing us that cannot get the information. I know this board has been bad about answering questions of a lot of people, including myself, but it's a matter of a lot of you believe in ghosting. I also know, and I there again, you'll correct me on this, some people are charged for FOIAs and some people aren't. So I think that's very bad. I'll stay up here for you. Correct me.
Mrs. Meltzer, I don't think I would do that. He's so far off base.
I just wanted to clarify that, to make statements about somebody that, that ordinance was an ordinance that we put together, myself, our township attorney. We worked a lot of hours on that. And that was a township ordinance, not a pro-marijuana ordinance. So just for clarification.
Thank you. Mr. Hogan?
Bob Hogan, 36755 Bar Street, Clinton Township. If these documents that Paul's asking for are so important, and Mike Key wants, and so does Ken Pearl.
Excuse
No,
me.
he doesn't want to.
I don't want them.
All right, anyways. Paul and Joey West and Mike, if they were that important, you can get an auditing firm. You can get Plant Moran in here. It'll only be $200 or $300 a person or per hour. But if they're that important, you can get the job done. And I'm sure Kim can teach them how to pull paper clips out or staples out. But I don't know how we can discuss this for hours, not hours, several minutes. And not just say, look, we're going to hire enough staff on a temporary basis to get the job done. That's how it should be. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion and a support on the floor. Roll call.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
I don't intend to try to disrupt the clerk's office, so I'm voting no.
Mr. Argona?
No.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, no. Motion passes.
Okay. Approval of the minutes of the January 3rd, 2020 regular Township Board meeting?
So moved.
I have
provided-
one change to look at. Page 23, Mr. Gilliam supported the motion for, I think it's 23, let me see.
I'm open right now.
My computer moved during this last discussion. Anyway, there was a motion for the, maybe it's page 20, page 20. Mr. Gilliam supported my motion for a economic development specialist, but then the next page, I amended the motion after discussion with the board, but it says Mr. Aragona amended his support. But I think it's still Mr. Gilliam that amended his support. There was just a mistake on that.
That's
Oh.
probably correct.
Yeah, that's when we agreed to, yeah, you're right.
Just a correction. Otherwise, minutes are fine, I'll move. Support
With that one change.
with the one change.
The actual roll call, it's found on page 21?
Yeah, 21.
21's where the mistake
It
is.
says, yeah.
Yep. So the roll call on the amended motion,
Reflects it.
Pearl, Gilliam, West, Keys, Cannon, yeah.
Mhm.
I'll support Mr. Pearl's motion.
Roll call, please.
Okay, hang on a second. Mr.
Are we,
Pearl?
are we approving with changes?
With the
Yeah.
change.
Okay, good, okay, all right.
Mr.
Yes.
Pearl? Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes,
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
thank you. Approval of the bills?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
Roll call, please.
I'm sorry, was that Mr.
Yes, sorry.
Keys.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. We have 4 public comments this evening. First on the list is Mr. Robert Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Robert Campbell, 41830 Kenvale Drive. This is a new subject for this evening. My subject is the status of fixing our local roads. In 2018, 3 members of this board actively campaigned against the millage recommendation of the Citizens Advisory Committee on Local Roads. I understood that 2 of the main objections were, first, the local roads do not belong to the township, so the money to fix them should come from the state or county. And second, there was a gubernatorial candidate with a key plank in her platform being that she was going to fix the damn roads. Almost 2 years later, we have seen basically no progress on any program to fix county or local roads. The governor and the legislature are deadlocked and not even working on a compromise proposal. So fixing the damn roads has turned into a $3.5 billion bonding program that fixes only some state and federal roads. Between now and 2024, the only roads in Macomb County that will be rebuilt under this program are the southern 3 miles of I-94 and M59 between Romeo Plank and I-94. That's a total of less than 8 miles in the entire county. That's not a plan to fix the damn roads. It's a mere drop in the bucket. Practically, this program will probably have a very negative effect, delaying other programs to fix county or local roads. By 2025, close to 100% of the county and local roads in Clinton Township will be in poor condition. Are we going to continue to just ignore the problem, waiting for Lansing to come up with an effective plan? I would like to believe that all of you care about rebuilding Clinton Township's infrastructure and the maintenance of our property values. So I'd urge you as a board to come together and take a proactive approach to fixing our local roads. One realistic way would be to give the voters another opportunity to pass the millage that was proposed 2 years ago and join the 551 other townships in the state that have a dedicated road millage. Yes, that's 551 other townships. However, that needs your timely action to get it on the November ballot. Typically, it is not good to propose a tax increase in an election year, but this will be the last opportunity before 2022 to put it on the ballot without paying for a special election. Thank you for your urgent attention to this critical issue.
Thank you. Our second is Catherine Campbell.
Catherine Campbell, 41830 Kentville Drive. When we have an election, quite often my husband and I are on different sides of an issue or vote for different candidates. But one issue we agree on is the need for a millage for local roads. As pointed out by a real estate person when the millage proposal was discussed in 2018, fixing our roads will provide a significant boost to our property values. Our street, Kentville Drive, is included in a proposed special assessment district of almost 70 homes to rebuild 4 of our streets. We have succeeded in receiving county grants over 2 years to cover half of the costs. However, the county has made it clear this is a one-time event. Essentially, the county general fund cannot be relied upon in the future. SADs, by themselves, are not a good method to fix our roads. Among other reasons, it puts the burden 100% on the homeowners, and all the commercial trucks on our roads pay nothing. So why do homeowners have to pay 100% of the cost to fix their streets when they have no control over who can use these streets, like the ever-increasing number of delivery trucks and school traffic? We believe the best approach is to use the funds from a township-wide millage on all properties. That is then used to do a 50-50 match with an SAD. The Citizens Advisory Committee report in 2018 included other reasons why total reliance on SADs is a poor way to raise funds to fix roads. Perhaps that is one reason why Michigan ranks 50th among the states in per capita funding on roads. To echo Bob's comments, please show that you care for our community and our property values by taking action very soon on this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Sam Bushell.
Sam Bushel, 18546 Wayland Drive. I've asked this question under the public comment question things and submitted it, but I figure it's a good one to find. I don't expect to get an answer. But I am asking, why has the Velick transportation site being used since 2015 per the minutes which I provided to you? It's been paying no property taxes as a business. It's empty lot. The same goes for the temporary use that this board approved for Pahoa Trucking for several acres of a trucking firm. They entirely gravelled the spot. They put up fencing. They have a trailer now in front that's working as an office. We were told at one of these meetings, it was stated that the assessor on December 31st would assess them for the stuff that they put in. That has not happened. They are still not paying taxes. Us homeowners have not been as lucky. Another thing that I've been kind of worried about is the fact that assessments for homes normally come out the first week of February. And that's because in March, we have the board of review. So people have to have these assessments ahead of time if they're going to do their studying to do an appeal. I haven't gotten mine yet. I've asked my neighbors. Nobody's gotten theirs. I'm not sure why, when February is almost up, these have not come out. And I think the law kind of makes it clear that they come out the first week of February. A third thing that's kind of interesting is that the northeast corner of 15 and Hayes, at the next planning commission, there are 3 items simultaneous on the agenda. One is to rezone the spot for higher density housing. So that's one proposal. And even after the Velick Transportation said how long it takes to do a site plan and the cost, you don't do it until you know if you've got the zoning, I'm sure. The next item on the agenda is site plan approval. And the third thing is for tree removal. And they might get approval for all the tree removal before this board gets a chance to vote on the rezoning. I am just amazed at that you can have those three items back to back to back on one meeting. It seems, just like with Velick, I gave you the notes where it said, in one meeting, he said, we were the only property that had the electric lines going midway through the property. On another meeting, he said we actually had a board member, you can listen to the tape, that said, oh yeah, that's right. These things go all the way up and down Groesbeck. I think the citizens are really being taken advantage of, and I think this board has to do something about it. And I hope my questions actually get answered as you each voted on the policy. I don't know why you're not following it, but I'm sure you have your own reasons.
Thank you. And our fourth is Kathy Poor.
Thank you. My name is Kathy Poor. I live at 43596 Hillsborough Drive, Clinton Township. And I'm here tonight representing the League of Women Voters in Macomb County. For those who are unfamiliar with the League of Women Voters, we are a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We work to increase understanding of major public policies and issues and influence public policy through education and advocacy. To this end, I'm here tonight to talk about Vote 411. I know many of you are familiar with that. It is our online voter guide where we ask questions of the candidates, and we're gearing up for the 2020 elections. So we would like to invite the residents of Clinton Township to submit questions to us to ask of candidates. And they can do that by using our website or sending us an email. Our website is lwvmacombcounty.org, or the email is lwvmacomb@gmail.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you. A motion is in order to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
You guys, those